Chapter 555. Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations Black Blade. Right now, Yi Xian had already entered Blade's Edge Island. There were broken swords and sabers everywhere. This was a treasure trove for Yi Xian. Some of the broken swords and sabers were supreme-grade celestial artifacts. Although they were broken, Yi Xian could still devour them. Immediately, Yi Xian began to quickly collect them. Yi Xian didn't want low-grade celestial artifacts, mid-grade celestial artifacts, high-grade celestial artifacts. He only wanted supreme-grade celestial artifacts. Most importantly, these supreme-grade celestial artifacts were all dropped on the ground. Yi Xian's speed was fast, and his strength was improving all the time. Haha, awesome! If I collect all the celestial artifacts on Blade Island, my attribute conversion will increase by at least 5 points. Yi Xian was in a good mood. However, these broken swords and sabers weren't the only things on Blade Island. Boom! 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 Suddenly, a series of explosions entered Yi Xian's ears. Yi Xian paused and turned to look in a certain direction. This was the sound of a battle, and it was probably only 10,000 meters away. Those who entered Blade Island before are probably all in the center. The one closest to me is at most 4.5 stars. With that in mind, Yi Xian rushed in that direction. When he arrived at the scene of the battle, he saw 2 figures fighting. One of them was naturally a human, while the other was actually a metallic creature. This metallic creature was covered in blades. Its hands and feet were black blades, and even its head was the same. It looked a little like a pine cone. What the hell is this? Yi Xian raised an eyebrow. He understood that this was probably some kind of exotic beast. Oh no! The warrior's expression darkened when he saw Yi Xian. He was alone and had no reinforcements. More importantly, he was currently entangled by a black blade. A 4.5 star evaluation? Yi Xian had seen this person before. A rating of 4.5 stars meant that the attribute conversion rate had reached at least 40%. It was more likely that it had reached 45%. Of course, it was also possible that it had reached 50%. After all, many people had hidden their strength. As long as it wasn't a 5-star rating or above, Yi Xian wasn't afraid. However, Yi Xian wasn't in a hurry to make a move. After all, he wanted to let this person test the black blade's strength first. Boom! 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 This martial artist attacked with his flaming sword qi as he retreated. The defensive power of that black blade was very strong. Furthermore, it was able to use a 2-handed blade to break through the flaming sword qi. It was very powerful. This black blade had no eyes, so it was unknown how it attacked. However, at this moment, its 2 black blade legs paused, and then its entire body began to spin wildly. It directly turned into a black blade tornado, sweeping towards the human. What? This martial artist's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. He immediately turned around and fled. However, the black blade's spinning speed was extremely fast. In an instant, it caught up with the cultivator and used the blade to dismember the cultivator. This scene completely fell into Yi Xian's eyes, causing him to be stunned for a moment. This Blade Island was indeed dangerous. Not only was the black blade's defensive power strong, but its offensive power and speed were also very strong. After the black blade tore the cultivator to pieces, it didn't stop. Instead, it swept towards Yi Xian. Humph, you dare to cause trouble for me with just you? Yi Xian's eyes flashed. He immediately drew his Bahuang sword and slashed out a few earth-shattering swords. Sacred Swordsman Bloodline. Throbbing Pulse of the Earth 2. Bahuang Sword. These 3 factors made Yi Xian's attack extremely powerful. In addition, this 5 elements array had 5 islands. Each island had its own attribute. Therefore, Yi Xian believed that Earth attribute attacks would be able to increase the damage. Furthermore, this black blade might be a mutated beast. The Beast King bloodline might be of some use. Bam! 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 The swords of the earth-splitting sword slammed into the black blade and shattered it in an instant. After its death, all the black sabers on its body fell apart, revealing the main body of the black saber. You can't even withstand a single blow. Yi Xian ridiculed, then walked over. A black blade that could instantly kill a 4.5 star rated cultivator had been instantly killed by him. Compared to the others, he had a huge advantage on this Blade Island. Yi Xian walked over. picked up the cultivator's severed finger, removed the intact interspatial ring, and devoured the items inside. Then he put away the black blade. Oh, you can devour them? That's quite a lot of experience. Yixian was very surprised. He continued to devour the black blade. The value of this black blade was comparable to that of a supreme-grade heaven artifact. However, what he didn't expect was that the value of the black blade far exceeded that of the other black blades. Its value could be as high as 1 to 100. This black blade was the main body of the black blade. The other black blades were embedded in this black blade. Big black saber, I understand now. So this is the token on Blade Edge Island. However, the Luosha region ruler said that the token is a golden blade. Then, I should kill a golden blade and obtain the main body of its golden blade. Yixian understood instantly. This black blade was probably just a small monster on Blade Island. As for the golden blade, it should be a boss. As long as he killed a golden blade, he could leave Blade Island. Of course, this was only Yixian's guess. Now, Yixian no longer collected those broken swords and sabers. This was purely a waste of time. Instead of collecting broken blades, he might as well kill these black blades. Let's go. At that moment, Yixian quickly left and started running. Soon he encountered a second black blade. Its strength was about the same as the previous one. Battle Dragon's 10 steps. Throbbing pulse of the Earth's second layer. This time Yixian didn't attack. He attacked directly with his feet. What surprised him was that he only stomped 4 times. Before he even reached the black blade, it was already dead. All the black blades on its body scattered on the ground. Sure enough, there's an attribute counter. Yixian was now certain. He then put away the black blade. At this rate, I'll be able to break through again after killing a few more black blades. He was very satisfied with the experience of these black blades. Moreover, it was late at night. Compared to the others, he had a greater advantage. Among all the young talents participating in the 100 Leaders Summit, Yixian's realm was the lowest. Even if he broke through, he would still be the lowest. Therefore, he wanted to quickly improve his realm on Blade Island. Only then would he be qualified to compete with others for the right to enter the 5 Elements pool. This place was destined to be extraordinary. Chapter 556. Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios. The Golden Blade. By the time dusk arrived, Yixian's realm had soared to 35%. Although it was only 5%, his strength had undergone an earth-shattering change. I still haven't encountered the Golden Blade. Perhaps I'll have to go deeper. Yixian thought to himself. However, he did not want to encounter the Golden Blade for the time being. He estimated that the Golden Blade's strength was at least 5 stars, or even 6 stars. There were simply too many talented youths. Those who were below 5 stars were just there to make up the numbers. Perhaps someone had already obtained the Golden Blade, or perhaps someone else had come from another island. In any case, Yixian occupied Blade Island. If he was able to kill all the Golden Blades, then wouldn't there be a place for him in the 5-element pool? After mentally preparing himself, Yixian continued on his way. His target was the person in the black blade. Because it had been night the previous night, everyone had been very careful. However, their speed would increase during the day. At the same time, the chances of them encountering Yixian by chance would increase greatly. Boom! 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 Suddenly, a series of explosions sounded in Yixian's ears. Yixian did not hesitate and immediately rushed in that direction. When he arrived, he saw 2 people fighting. This time it was 2 humans. Their attribute conversion is over 50. Yixian narrowed his eyes and watched the battle from the sidelines. The 2 of them had also noticed Yixian and split their attention to guard against him. Earlier, Tornado's test had not produced a 5-star evaluation. At most it was 4.5 stars. These 5-star evaluators had all come with invitations. Therefore, their backgrounds were more powerful than the average person's. What are you looking at, kid? Scram! The youth in white robes shouted. Scram! Yixian was enraged by this. He had been watching the battle because he thought that someone else might come. However, he could no longer sit still. Demon God Chapter. The phantom of a demon god suddenly condensed behind Yixian. Immediately afterward, he charged over to kill them. You overestimate yourself. Kill him first. The young man in white said. All right. His opponent nodded. The two of them instantly reached a consensus. Both of them had already converted more than 50% of their attributes, while Yixian had only converted 35%. However, they did not comprehend any ultimacy, nor did they possess any illusionary divine weapons. Most importantly, there was a space ceiling formation on the 5 islands. Battle Dragons 10 steps. Buzz. Yixian instantly took a few steps forward. The War Dragon Stomp, which was imbued with the pulsation of the earth, instantly shook their heads. Earth-splitting sword. Swish! 2 earth-shattering swords shot out from the ground and instantly cut off their heads. I can insta-kill someone with 50% attribute conversion. My strength can be considered above average among this group of geniuses. Even so, Yixian was not very satisfied with this strength. At this time, he dared to use the Bahuang sword because there was no one around. If there were many people, he would definitely not take out the Bahuang sword. After all, it was an illusionary divine weapon. If he only relied on ultimacy, it would not be enough to deal with these geniuses. Hence, he needed to continue improving. After killing the 2 of them, Yixian looked around. After confirming that there was no one else, he walked over and took off the 2 interspatial rings. However, before he could devour them, he found something good in one of the interspatial rings. Is this pure gold gravel? Yixian's eyes lit up. Pure gold gravel was one of the 5 tokens that represented the earth attribute. In other words, one of the 2 corpses might have come from the earth attribute island next door. In that case, he did not need to go to the yellow sand island. Perhaps he did not need to go to the other islands either. He only needed to wait on the Blade Island and wait for the others to deliver him. However, this pure gold gravel seemed to be very precious. Hence, Yixian felt that it was better to devour it first. Ding! The host's earth attribute conversion has increased to 38 points. The 2 interspatial rings allowed Yixian to break through 3 times at once, from 35 points to 38 points. I don't care if the pure gold gravel is a mission item. I need to improve my strength first. Yixian devoured everything in the interspatial rings and continued on his way. By now, he had a rough idea that the Blade Island was divided into 2 parts. He was still in the outer area. As for the golden blades, they should have appeared in the inner area. Hence, this time, he headed straight for the center of the island instead of circling around the outer area. He advanced for a while. Although he did not find any golden blades, he did find a group of black blades. There were more than 10 black blades in this group. At this moment, Yixian's attention suddenly fell on the back of the black blades. There seemed to be a blade mountain there. The golden blades might be in there. Yixian's eyes flashed and he quickly dashed out. He did not need to attack to deal with the black blades. All he needed to do was to stomp his feet. Bam! 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 A series of shockwaves traveled up the black blades and instantly killed them. Yixian flashed over and devoured all the black blades. However, right at that moment, a figure suddenly flew up the Blade Peak mountain. Is that the 5.5-star guy? Yixian's eyes flashed. Their Blade Island had never had a 6-star rating before, so Yixian remembered all the 5.5-star and 5-star people. This figure had a 5.5-star rating, so his attribute conversion had reached at least 55%. If I kill him, my attribute conversion will probably soar again. But it'll be difficult. Yixian hesitated. Although he had killed 2 people with 50% conversion before, this was 55%. Besides, who knew if this person was hiding his true strength? What if his true strength had reached 60% conversion? I'd better back off. Yixian decided not to cause trouble for that person. He would kill some black blades around the Blade Mountain first. The Blade Mountain was not big, but Yixian spent 5 minutes running around it. During this time, he killed more than 100 black blades. There were strong and weak black blades. The weak ones could fight to a draw with someone with 40% conversion. As for the strong ones, they could pose a slight threat to Yixian. Therefore, there were naturally high and low experience points. After Yixian circled the Blade Mountain, his attribute conversion increased by 1 point, reaching 39. Just a little more and he would reach 40. At this moment, Ka. Chapter 557. Blade Peak Mountain. Is it that person from before? Yixian focused his eyes. Sure enough, it was the martial artist with a 5.5-star evaluation. Behind this martial artist was a group of golden blades. As expected, the golden blades are on this Blade Peak mountain. Yi Xian's heart trembled. If it was a group of golden blades, he would not be afraid. But now that there was a group of golden blades chasing after the martial artist, Yi Xian had no choice but to retreat. He hurriedly hid himself and watched quietly. "I'll fight it out with you," the martial artist roared and rushed back. However, after he was surrounded by the golden blades, he was instantly hacked to death. F*ck so strong. Yi Xian's heart trembled. He was not admiring the martial artist's strength, but was afraid of the group of golden blades. What he was most afraid of was that these golden blades moved in groups. If he provoked one, it would attract a group. Previously, he had obtained the pure gold gravel, but the other party's attribute conversion had only reached 50%. This meant that the pure gold gravel was not difficult to obtain. As for this martial artist, his strength was very close to 60%, but he was chased by a group of golden blades and then hacked to death. However, Yi Xian's eyes still lit up, because he saw that the group of golden blades, after killing that martial artist, all returned to the Blade Peak mountain. "Haha, I'm going to take advantage of you." Yi Xian laughed in his heart and quickly rushed over. However, what he did not expect was that there were actually people around, and they had the same idea as him. "Brat, you're courting death." A man shouted angrily and slashed out a flame slash at Yi Xian. Insignificant skill die. Yi Xian directly dodged the slash. Before that, his feet had already stepped out a few war dragons 10 steps. Buzz. Crack. This martial artist who wanted to take advantage of the situation had his head crushed by Yi Xian's kick and instantly fell to the ground. "You overestimate yourself." Yi Xian snorted coldly. He ran to the corpse of the warrior who had been hacked to death and picked up his interspatial ring. The interspatial ring had been grazed by the golden blade. Fortunately, it did not shatter. Otherwise, Yi Xian would have cried. Ding! Host's Earth attribute conversion has reached 43 points. This yin and yang ring had increased Yi Xian's attribute conversion by 4 points. It was a good harvest. Then Yi Xian turned around and walked to the unlucky guy whose head had been crushed by his kick. He picked up the interspatial ring. Pure gold sand again? Yi Xian narrowed his eyes. This person's attribute conversion was only at 45%. He wasn't very strong. It seemed that the Yellow Sand Island was more relaxed. Now Yi Xian had the strength to survive on Blade Edge Island. At this moment he was wondering if he should climb this mountain full of blades. "I'll just go and take a look. If worst comes to worst, I'll just run. In any case, I have the Earth Pulse. They shouldn't be able to catch up to me." Yi Xian's eyes flashed. He had made up his mind. He could attack enemies even if he was running. Although the group of golden blades was strong, it would be fine as long as he did not get surrounded. At this thought, he took a step forward and ran toward Blade Edge Mountain. Blade Edge Mountain. There were no blades on the mountain, only some metal blades. Yi Xian tried to break off one of them, but found that the benefits were very low after devouring it, so he did not bother with it. At this moment he had already climbed up Blade Edge Mountain. Golden blades. They are very strong. If there are only one or two, I should be able to deal with them. If there is a group, I will have to run. Yi Xian thought to himself. After all, he had seen many black blades form blade tornadoes, so he guessed that the golden blades could do the same. Flying was not allowed on Blade Edge Island, so it would be difficult for him to avoid them. So many black blades? At this moment, Yi Xian's eyes suddenly narrowed. He found a group of black blades on Blade Edge Mountain. There were more than 100 of them. This was a treasure trove for leveling up. Kill! Yi Xian immediately rushed over. When he got close, he suddenly used the Battle Dragon Stomp. Boom! The entire earth shook. Every step Yi Xian took was able to kill a black blade. In less than 3 seconds, these hundreds of black blades were all killed by him. After all, his speed was measured in units of 1,000 meters per second. He could cross dozens of meters with each step. Yi Xian put away all of the black blades. His strength had increased slightly, and his chi had also recovered to its peak. There were more than 100 black blades. Even someone with 60% attribute conversion would not dare to recklessly make an enemy out of them. However, Yixian could kill them with ease. It was not that no one saw this scene. A person in a white cloud in the sky had a panoramic view. This kid really is hiding his strength. He can kill over 100 black blades in 3 seconds without making a move. His strength is already at 6 stars. This person was Tornado, who was in charge of Blade Edge Island. Although there was a flight restriction formation here, he was not affected because of his strength. However, what he didn't understand was why Yixian had to hide his strength. If he had a 6-star evaluation at the beginning, then he would have been able to enter the Blade Edge Island in the 3rd hour. He would have been able to buy a lot of time. However, he was too far away, so he did not know that Yixian had comprehended the ultimacy. He also did not know that the weapon in Yixian's hand was a virtual god weapon. However, he continued to follow and observe. At this time it had been more than 10 minutes since Yixian entered Blade Edge Mountain. In this half an hour, he had killed several groups of black blades. There were more than 1,000 of them in total. With his extraordinary recovery speed, he did not need to rest at all. He did not need to recover. He just killed his way up. That's strange. That person encountered the golden blades not long after he went up. I've been here for more than 10 minutes. Why haven't I seen them yet? Yixian was very helpless. However, he really did get what he wanted. Just as this thought flashed through his mind, he found a trace of gold on the blade's peak mountain. A golden blade. I finally found it and it's alone. You're finished. Yixian's eyes lit up. He estimated that the value of this golden blade was at least equivalent to 500 black blades. In an instant, Yixian rushed over. The golden blade also discovered Yixian and used its 2 golden blade legs to welcome him. Sword of Earth Splitting. Battle Dragon's 10 Steps. Earth Pulsation. Before this golden blade could get close, several golden blades were first shaken off by the Battle Dragon's 10 Steps. Then, they were immediately struck by the Sword of Earth Splitting and disintegrated instantly. I killed the golden blade in 1 hit. My attack power is not bad. Yixian was very satisfied. Chapter 558. Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translation 6-Star Slayer. The main body's golden saber was probably even tougher than a supreme-grade heaven-tier weapon. If not for the lack of enhancement, Yixian could have played around with the golden saber. Unfortunately, the golden saber had no enhancement at all. Could only be used as a toy. Yixian felt that he could encounter more golden sabers, so he devoured the golden saber. So much experience. If I can kill a few more, I'll probably be able to break through again. His eyes lit up and he quickly rushed out. At the same time, another person entered Blade Peak Mountain. If Yixian were here, he would definitely recognize that this person was one of the 8 6-star rated people from the other day. A 6-star rated person with an invitation card would have at least 60% attribute conversion. His actual combat power would definitely surpass that of a 6-star. Yixian, who did not know this, was still pacing around Blade Peak Mountain. So the golden sabers aren't as scary as I thought. As long as there aren't more than 10 of them, I can easily deal with them. Yixian was still slaughtering the black and golden sabers. Now his confidence was greatly boosted. Even if he encountered a group of golden sabers, he was confident that he could exhaust them to death. Ding! The host's Earth attribute conversion has increased. It is currently at 44 points. The system notified. Finally, he broke through. Seems like it's still hard to level up by killing monsters. The fastest way is still to kill. Yixian shook his head helplessly. Unfortunately, those experts were scattered across the 5 islands. There were not many experts on Blade Peak Island. Those 5.5-star rated experts might have already obtained golden sabers and gone to other islands. Rumble. Just as Yixian broke through, a rumbling sound came from afar. Yixian raised an eyebrow and muttered to himself, "There's still someone on Blade Peak Mountain." Someone was here. This was a good sign. If it was an easy target, he would go over. Immediately, he rushed in that direction. Not long after, he saw a group of golden sabers chasing after a young man. F*CK, I've been here for so long, but I haven't seen a group of golden blades. Yixian rolled his eyes. He didn't know whether it was good luck or bad luck that he didn't encounter a group of golden blades. He narrowed his eyes and discovered that the young man being chased was actually one of the 8 6-star experts. His eyes immediately lit up. If he were to fight one-on-one, he might have to fight a tough battle. However, it was not a one-on-one battle. That young man was being chased by 7 golden blades. If he didn't take advantage of this situation, how could it be justified? Kill! Yi Xian's eyes flashed as he swiftly swept over. In this world of the strong, he would not show mercy because he knew that if he was the one being hunted down and the young man saw it, he would definitely do the same. Damn it! The young man also noticed Yi Xian and immediately cursed. Then he shouted, "Sir, help me kill these golden blades and we'll split them equally." Split equally? Hearing this, Yi Xian's eyes couldn't help but emit 2 rays of light. He could slowly deal with these golden blades. Why would he need to team up with someone else? Moreover, the young man's universe ring was the real deal. If he got it, he could at least break through once. Cut the crap and die. Yi Xian shouted and took a step forward with his right foot. Battle Dragon's 10 steps. Pulse of the Earth. Second layer. This attack directly passed through the group of golden blades and blasted toward the young man. What? The young man was shocked and hurriedly gathered his attribute True Qi at his feet. Although he was still hit, his fire attribute True Qi blocked a lot of the impact. However, his feet couldn't help but tremble. In an instant, the golden blades closed the distance between them. What kind of martial art is this? How can it be so powerful? The young man was very puzzled. At this time he only thought that this martial art was powerful. He didn't expect it to be the weakest earth attribute martial art that had only merged with the profound meaning of earth. However, that kick just now was just an appetizer. Bang! 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 Yi Xian's feet quickly alternated as he continuously used the Battle Dragon's 10 steps that had merged with the pulse of the earth. Second layer. Even if the young man had fire attribute True Qi, he couldn't block such a frequent attack. After all, he still had to defend against those golden blades. Although Yi Xian's Battle Dragon's 10 steps didn't hit every time, it was enough that one of the 3 strikes could hit the young man. Crack! When the third Battle Dragon's 10 steps that contained the pulse of the earth landed on the young man's feet, a unique crisp sound finally rang out. This was the sound of the young man's bones shattering. Not good. The young man's expression changed. He didn't expect to fall in such a damned place. He also didn't expect that he would be attacked by countless golden blades. Yi Xian didn't want the young man to be hacked to death by the golden blades. What if they broke the universe ring? Therefore, he started to clean up the golden blades. Sort of the earth splitting. Battle Dragon's 10 steps. Pulse of the earth. Second layer. A series of explosions rang out as Yi Xian slashed out 5 sword of the earth splitting, disintegrating one of the golden blades. This scene fell into the young man's eyes, and his heart was in turmoil. So strong. This person's attack power is so strong. Who is he? Why didn't he show off when we were on the back of the 9 firmament's great cloud rock? Why did he give up on the guidance of the Dominator? The young man had many questions in his heart, but he was in no mood to ask them now that he was in danger. He had to escape or he might die here. Boom! The second golden blade fell. Boom! The third golden blade fell. At this moment, only 4 golden blades were left chasing after the young man. Kid, I won't let you go just like that. Yi Xian's figure flashed and suddenly appeared in front of a golden blade. He then slashed the ground with the sword of the earth splitting. The sword of the earth splitting that he used just now was thrown out, so the young man didn't notice it. When the young man felt something was wrong, a cold light suddenly swept out from under his feet and hit his left hand. Rip! A broken arm flew up. What? The young man's eyes widened. He didn't expect this. His interspatial ring contained a large number of heavenly treasures and earthly treasures, as well as the 5 elements tokens that he had spent a day collecting. He couldn't lose them. I'll fight it out with you. The young man made up his mind. He gripped his long sword tightly and rushed back. However, right at that moment, a figure suddenly flew over and caught his severed arm. It was Yi Xian. Haha! The moment Yi Xian took off his universe ring, he couldn't help but smile. Ding! The host's Earth attribute conversion has increased to 47 points. Chapter 559. Translator. Transin Editor. Meditation Seed. Ding! Host's Earth attribute conversion has increased to 47 points. This time it was another huge breakthrough as it increased by 3 points. The young man was the young city lord of one of the big cities in Luosha region. His interspatial ring contained unimaginable wealth. However, all of it went to Yixian. Haha! Die! Yixian's aura suddenly surged as a large amount of demonic aura gushed out from his body and condensed into the shadow of a demon god. He had not used the demon god chapter from the beginning so that he could unleash his power at this moment. Now the time had come. Battle Dragon's 10 steps. Sword of the Earth splitting. Pulse of the Earth. The young man only felt his eyes flicker as if the entire world was shaken. In the next moment he saw the 4 golden blades in front of him disintegrate instantly. Strong. So strong. This was his first reaction and also his last reaction. Gotcha. A crisp sound was transmitted into his mind. Then his vision quickly blurred. His head had been shattered by Yixian. Plop! The young man's body fell to the ground. Not only that, but the 4 golden blades also fell. Yixian instantly exploded and killed them. This was his true strength. Even a 6-star person was killed by me. With my strength, I should be able to squeeze into the top 10 among these 1,000 people. Yixian thought to himself. However, he did not become arrogant. After all, he could not reveal the Bahuang sword. Without the Bahuang sword, he was at most a 6-star person. Those 6-star people usually hid their strength. Who knows, there might be a few who could achieve 70% conversion. After pausing for a moment, he kept the corpses of the golden blades and began to investigate the items inside. Just now, he had devoured the cultivation resources and did not take a closer look. This person's status was definitely not low. Who knows, he might have something good. Fiery stone, pure gold sand? Yixian was a little surprised. He did not expect this young man to have been to 2 islands. This was too good for him. With the addition of the golden blade, he now had 3 tokens of the 5 elements. Right now I'm still not strong enough. Let's first explore this Blade Peak mountain, then go to wood and water. Yixian thought for a moment, then disappeared in a flash. It had only been a day, but he had already collected 3 tokens. Perhaps the first batch of 7-star evaluators had already collected 5 tokens? He didn't dare be negligent because there were only 10 spots to enter the 5-element pool, and the time was determined according to the number of spots. However, what he did not know was that his actions were seen by Tornado. To think that this brat's strength is so terrifying. Since the 1,000 Demon sect was able to nurture such a genius, I reckon that they wouldn't decline too far. Tornado narrowed his eyes. At this moment he was wondering if he should get closer to observe Yixian and see what kind of trump cards he had. However, after thinking about it, he decided against it. After all, with Yixian's strength, it shouldn't be difficult for him to collect the 5 elements tokens. After this round, wouldn't he find out in the second round? Tornado stood high in the sky watching Yixian. He watched as Yixian walked around Blade Peak Mountain, killing the black and golden blades. Does this brat want to go around Blade Peak Mountain and collect all the golden blades? After realizing Yixian's intentions, Tornado didn't know whether to laugh or cry. If that was the case, then the others wouldn't be able to complete the task. However, there was a fixed number of golden blades on Blade Peak Mountain. Tornado knew how many golden blades there were on Blade Peak Mountain. Moreover, before Yixian came to Blade Peak Mountain, someone had already obtained a golden blade and left. Below, Yixian didn't notice that someone was watching him. He killed his way from the south to the north, killing more than 100 golden blades. I've only improved a little. It's too slow. Let's go to Wood Island. Yixian shook his head. If he lost a spot to enter the 5-element pool because of collecting these golden blades, then the loss outweighed the gain. His goal was to enter the top 10. He immediately left Blade Edge Island and tried to get his bearings. Blade Peak Island was the Metal Island, the left was the Earth Island, and the right was the Wood Island. This time he was going to the Isle of Wood, then the Isle of Water, and finally the Isle of Ice. Finally, he would be able to enter the Central Isle. However, when he arrived at the edge of Blade Peak Island and saw the Wood Island, a voice suddenly rang out in the sky. Someone has already reached the Central Island. I hope everyone will work hard and be careful. Yixian recognized this voice. It belonged to the Luosha region's domain lord. Yixian exclaimed inwardly. Sure enough, someone reached Blade Peak Mountain before me and obtained a golden blade. I don't know who this person is, but first place gets to soak in the 5-element pool for 10 days first. He didn't dare to delay and jumped into the sea. Only the 5-element island had a forbidden space formation. This sea had one as well. Those who weren't strong enough had to swim obediently. Yixian had a bloodline, so he swam extremely fast. In less than 5 minutes, he reached the Wood Island. Yixian didn't know the name of this Wood Island, but he knew that this Wood Island should be very dangerous. After all, he had seen a few people come from the Earth Island, but he had never seen the Wood Island before. The Wood element's attack power isn't strong, but it has many effects. This Wood Island should be poisonous. Yixian reminded himself in his heart. He wasn't afraid of poison. After all, he had the bloodline of the sacred tree of life. As long as his strength continued to increase, his resistance to poison would also increase. However, not all poisons could be detoxified immediately. If he was poisoned by a paralyzing poison and was killed while he was detoxifying, that would be terrible. Yixian reached the Wood Island. He guessed that the tokens of the 5 elements should be at the center of each island. Now that someone had already reached the center island, he had to hurry. He rushed straight to the center. Previously on Blade Edge Island, Yixian had seen quite a few heavenly and earthly treasures, but this island of wood was even more terrifying. Heavenly and earthly treasures could be seen everywhere, so Yixian was extremely happy to receive them. Boom! 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 Another series of explosions fell into Yixian's ears. Yixian was stunned. Without thinking, he rushed toward the source of the sounds. This time it was a battle between 2 people. Scram! I found this tranquil seed first. Rare treasures belong to the capable. So what if you found it first? Didn't I pluck it first? You're courting death. 2 quarreling voices came. Yixian looked around and saw that 2 people were fighting. However, he focused his attention on the conversation between the 2 of them. Tranquil seed? It was actually the tranquil seed? Yixian's eyes lit up. Chapter 560. Translator, Transin Editor. Transin Demon God Transformation. Yixian had tried to fuse the demon god's projection into his body after hearing Tornado's words, but the system had notified him that his realm was not high enough. It was still the same now. However, if he obtained some things, he could bring it forward. For example, the meditation seed. Haha, the meditation seed. If I can get the meditation seed, I can fuse the demon god's projection into my body. When that happens, I will be a demon god. Yixian was overjoyed. He observed for a moment and realized that these 2 people were not very strong. At most, they had a 5.5-star evaluation. He had even killed a 6-star evaluation. What was a 5.5-star evaluation to him? Let me be the fisherman one more time. Yixian instantly charged out of the forest. What? The 2 people turned around in shock. Then their heads buzzed as 2 war dragons 10 steps imbued with the throbbing pulse of the earth shattered their heads. Instant kill. Yixian's strength had already grown to such a terrifying level just by moving his feet. After the 2 people died, Yixian quickly went over and took their interspatial rings. Sure enough, there was a green seed in one of the rings. It looked a little like a bloodline seed. This was the meditation seed. Ding! Will the host fuse with the demon god's projection? Yes. After Yixian answered in his mind, the meditation seed in the devour space disappeared. Ding! The fusion of the demon god's projection is successful. The host has learned the Tao Heart Seed Demon Technique. Demon God Transformation. Success! Yixian's eyes suddenly widened. He immediately used the Tao Heart Seed Demon Technique. A large amount of demonic qi surged out of his body and condensed into the demon god's projection. This was no different from the demon god chapter. However, this was not the end. After the demon god's projection appeared, it suddenly rushed into Yixian's body. In the next moment, Yixian's aura suddenly expanded. So strong. It's at least twice as strong as the demon god chapter. Yixian was bursting with confidence. He was thinking that if he had been able to fuse with the demon god Phantom back on Blade Peak Mountain, he would have been able to finish off the 6-star rated youth even without using the Bahuang sword. In other words, He could now put away the Bahuang sword as a trump card. I'll keep the Bahuang sword for now, and use the demon god transformation. Yixian put away the Bahuang sword and casually took out a high-quality heaven artifact. Although the demonic god transformation was powerful, when it was used, 4/5 of Yixian's true qi would be drained. The more true qi he consumed, the stronger his amplification would be. Fortunately, he had the bloodline of the sacred tree of life. Otherwise, he could only use it as a trump card. Now that he could fuse with the demonic god's phantom, he had the ability to compete with those geniuses. Therefore, he had to hurry up. The sooner he collected the 5 elements token, the sooner he could go to the central island and obtain the title. Yixian fused with the demon god's phantom and charged toward the center of the Isle of Wood with his black eyes. The center of the Isle of Wood was still a forest, but there was a special danger here. It was the demon tree that Yixian had encountered before. Yixian casually killed a person and obtained the so-called sacred seed of life. The sacred seed of life was a good thing. It was a holy item for healing. However, Yixian already had the bloodline of the sacred tree of life. It was equivalent to devouring the sacred seed of life at all times. Then Yixian quickly left the Isle of Wood and headed for the Isle of Water. At this time, he had already obtained 4 tokens. As long as he obtained the Star of the Ocean, he could go to the central island. However, just as he was about to enter the sea, a second person has already reached the central island. He is currently in second place. The Luosha region's domain ruler's voice suddenly rang out. Yixian was startled but suddenly felt a sense of hope. Now that a second person had reached the central island, he might be able to snatch the top 3. Third place would be able to soak in the 5 elements pool for 8 days. Yixian estimated that if he were to soak in the 5 elements pool for 8 days, it would be enough to raise his attribute affinity to the upper epic level. At that time, his attack would have a qualitative leap. However, when he arrived at the Isle of Water, damn, is the Isle of Water a donut? Is it the center of the island or the sea? Yixian was speechless. It seemed that if he wanted to obtain the Star of the Ocean, he would have to go to the bottom of the sea. He also understood that there should be an array at the bottom of the Isle of Water. Yixian didn't even think as he directly jumped into the sea. Damn, it's so cold. As soon as he jumped in, his whole body shivered. The water here was much colder than the water outside. Most people can only stay here for an hour. But I have the bloodline of the sacred tree of life. I can maintain my body temperature and breathe underwater. I have an advantage over others. This thought, Yixian immediately dove in. Several bloodlines immediately came into play. The bottom of the sea was very dark, but Yixian could see clearly. After jumping in, he kept diving. He estimated that the Star of the Ocean should be in the depths. He dived for a while. Boom! 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 There was a flash of light in the distance as well as some impact. As expected, the bottom of the sea was still dangerous. Of course, it could also be 2 humans fighting. Yixian quickly rushed over. If 2 humans were fighting, it could be because they were fighting for the Star of the Ocean. However, he was disappointed. The 2 people who were fighting were not both humans. Only one of them was fighting with an undersea saint beast. When Yixian went over, he just happened to kill the undersea saint beast and quickly put away the corpse. However, Yixian's sharp eyes saw that after the sacred beast died, a part of its body glowed. The Star of the Ocean. A thought flashed through his mind and he immediately rushed over. You want to steal it? You're courting death. The young man instantly charged at Yixian. Although they were at the bottom of the sea, he happened to be of the water attribute, so his attack power would not be reduced by much. At this moment, Yixian noticed that the young man seemed to be one of the 8 6-star experts. The corner of his mouth immediately curled up. You can only count yourself unlucky to have met me. Yixian's eyes flashed. He immediately summoned the demon god's shadow and merged it into his body. He held the Bahuang sword in his hand and slashed several earth-shattering swords in front of him. The earth-shattering swords, which contained the pulse of the earth, broke through the water and instantly dispersed the young man's water attribute qi. What? The young man did not expect his attack to be broken. He was a little careless because he was unfamiliar with Yixian. You want to kill me with this little bit of skill? Dream on. The young man clenched his teeth and used his trump card. Water Dragon burst. The earth-shattering swords were instantly swallowed by the young man's water dragon. However, the earth-shattering swords were not to be trifled with. The water dragon had just formed when it was on the verge of collapse. Water dragon, swallow him. Chapter 561. Translator. Hinny Translations Editor. Hinny Translations Central Island. Humph. Yixian snorted and charged forward with Dragon War Stomp. The water dragon opened its bloody mouth and swallowed Yixian in one gulp. However, in the next moment, its body violently shook, creating a violent impact that shook away the surrounding water, forming a vacuum space. Yixian, on the other hand, dashed toward the young man unscathed. Earth-shattering sword. Yixian swung his sword a few more times. His attack was blocked due to the distance just now. Now that they were 1,000 meters apart, the young man would not be able to block his attack so easily. Run! Seeing that his water dragon was destroyed, the young man immediately turned around and fled. However, how could he be faster than Yixian, who had the bloodline of the bladefish and had advanced his agility 3 times? You still want to run? Yixian quickly caught up with him and waved his Bahuang sword crazily, blocking the young man's escape route. Die! In the next moment, Yixian released his killer move. The young man was unable to block it, and was cut into pieces by the earth-shattering sword. Dead! Star of the ocean! Yixian's eyes lit up. He quickly dashed over and kept the young man's interspatial ring. Indeed, the source of light in the sacred beast's corpse was a stone that looked like a starfish. It should be the so-called Star of the Ocean. Now that Yixian had collected all 5 elements tokens, he would be third as long as he reached the central island. Let's go. Yixian quickly crawled out of his sleeping bag and swam to the shore. After identifying the location, he swam toward the central island. At this moment, the sky was already dark. The 5 elements formation had 5 elemental islands, and the central island was in the middle. Yixian quickly swam over because there was no third place yet. If he could get the third place, he could stay in the 5 elements pool for 8 days. 8 days. He had heard that a legendary prodigy had appeared in the 5 elements pool. He estimated that if he soaked in it for 8 days, his affinity with the earth element would at least increase to the upper epic level. It was even possible for him to reach the legendary level. Charge. Yixian could not care less. At this moment he was thinking that even if he met someone along the way, he would not make a move. He would fight for third place first. However, what he wished for really happened. When he saw the central island, there was actually a person from the neighboring Fire Island who wanted to go to the central island. F***ck, what a coincidence! Yixian was stunned for a moment. He could feel the aura from thousands of meters away, so he could not fall behind. As the sky was rather dark, the other party had only discovered Yixian and did not know who Yixian was. However, there was actually someone who wanted to snatch his third place. Courting death. You bastard, you want to steal my third place? Don't even think about it. The young man's eyes turned cold as he rushed towards Yixian. In terms of distance, he was closer than Yixian, but he suddenly turned back because he felt that Yixian was faster than him. If the two of them were to compete, Yixian would definitely reach the central island faster. You're coming towards me. How dare you overestimate yourself? Fine, I'll send you to hell. Yixian took out the Bahuang sword, stomped his feet, and flew towards his opponent. Demon God Transformation. Sword of the Earth-shattering. Pulse of the Earth, 2nd level. When his opponent got close, Yixian did not hesitate to attack. His opponent was slower than him, but he could not detect much. Fortunately, his opponent was of the fire attribute. In the sea, the power of his attack would be greatly reduced. Yixian's Sword of the Earth-shattering took 3 flaming sword cheese from his opponent to break through. The gap was instantly exposed. How strong! I can't fight him. Retreat. The young man's face darkened as he quickly turned back. You want to run after showing off? Yixian did not want to find trouble with him, but his opponent was clearly in front of him, yet he came looking for trouble. You can come and go as you please, but it won't be that easy to leave. Sword of the Earth-shattering. Pulse of the Earth, 2nd level. Yixian attacked crazily and blocked his opponent's escape route. At the same time, he quickly chased after him. He estimated that his speed in the sea was the fastest among the 1,000 geniuses. Definitely the best. Bang! 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 Yixian's legs alternated rapidly and caught up with his opponent in the blink of an eye. Not good. The other party's expression had already sunk to the bottom of the valley. He was extremely regretful in his heart. Why did he take the initiative to provoke Yixian? If he hadn't provoked him just now, getting fourth place wouldn't be bad. After all, it was only one day less. But now? Now he had to bear the wrath of Yixian. There was a possibility of dying. No, it was not a possibility. He would definitely die. Die. Yixian stomped his feet and waved his Bahuang sword crazily. In a second he sent out more than 20 slashes. These 20 swords of the earth shattering easily broke through the seawater that could freeze a strength realm martial artist to death and swept towards the young man. The angles of these attacks were extremely tricky. According to Yixian's estimations, this youth would definitely die under these series of attacks. Sure enough, it was just as Yixian expected. After blocking 3 of the swords of the earth shattering, the young man was hit by the remaining swords of the earth shattering. His entire body exploded in the sea. You overestimate yourself. Yixian snorted coldly. He swept over and put away the interspatial ring. This young man was also one of the 8 6-star geniuses. Unfortunately, he met Yixian in the sea. Now, Yixian had personally killed 3 6-star geniuses. Ding! The host's Earth attribute conversion has increased. It is currently at 48 points. 48 points, only 2 points left from 50%. After his opponent died, Yixian did not hesitate for a moment. He quickly swam towards the central island. A minute later, he successfully landed on the central island. Oh, another one came. A surprised voice sounded out. Yixian raised his head to look and saw a person in the air. The 5 elements great array had a space restriction array. Even the strongest geniuses could not fly. Since this person was able to stand in the sky, he was naturally someone beside the Luosha region's domain master. You are third. Come with me. The old man smiled at Yixian. Then he slowly flew in a direction. Yixian used his true qi to dry the water and followed him. Soon he saw a small palace that was emitting golden light under the night sky. There was a group of people in front of the palace's gate. Oh! When this group of people saw Yixian, they all looked at him in surprise. After all, these people had never seen Yixian before. Little brother, take out the 5 elements tokens. If they are correct, you will be third. If they are wrong, you will be eliminated. The old man who led Yixian here just now landed on the ground. Yixian nodded. Then, he took out the tokens one by one from the devouring space. Chapter 562. Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations 5 Elements Pool. Not bad. All 5 of them are correct. You are the 3rd place of the first round of the 100 Territories Summit. The old man nodded. He did not take away Yixian's items. Although the Luosha region's domain leader did not take out a sample for these geniuses to see, what was the use of being a genius if they did not even have this much insight? Yes. Yixian's lips curled up slightly. He did not expect that he would be able to squeeze into the top 3. His original plan was to be in the top 10. After obtaining the rankings, Yixian's gaze fell on the others. He felt a little strange because he did not find the 1st and 2nd place among this group of experts. Could it be that they have already entered the 5 elements pool? Yixian thought to himself. Only then did he remember that this was to save time. The 1st place was rewarded with 10 days of immersion in the 5 elements pool. The 2nd place was rewarded with 9 days of immersion. Yixian was 3rd and could immerse himself in the pool for 8 days. If he immersed himself in the pool by himself, it would take 2 months. Therefore, he was sure that the 1st and 2nd place had already entered the 5 elements pool. Kid, I see a large amount of demonic aura on your body. Which force are you from? At this time, the Luosha region's domain leader suddenly asked. I am from the Thousand Demon sect in the Green Cliff region. Yixian replied. Oh, the Thousand Demon sect, the sect established by Old Devil 1000s of years ago. The Luosha region's domain leader nodded slightly, and did not ask any more questions. He said directly, then you can go in. You are the 3rd place, so you can immerse yourself in the pool for 8 days. Let's go, I will bring you in. The old man from before walked over and directly brought Yixian into the palace. Yixian heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, this group of experts had concealed their auras. Otherwise, if all of them were to be released, he would not be able to breathe. Kid, don't jump in recklessly later. The Five Elements pool was formed by the Five Elements Great Array after thousands of years. The five elements reinforce and counteract each other. Each element is gathered from the 5 islands. Every drop is very precious. When you come out, you must shake the water dry before coming out, the old man reminded him. Junior knows. Yixian nodded. Very soon the old man brought Yixian to a small room. The moment the door was opened, Yixian could smell a dense spiritual energy. 5 elements pool. Yixian widened his eyes and looked at the square pool in front of him. This square pool was only 10 meters long. What? Just one? He was a little surprised. He thought that the 5-element pool would be the 5 pools of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. He didn't expect them to be together. At this moment there were already 2 figures in the 5 elements pool, a man and a woman. Yixian had seen this man before. It was Li Xiu, who had fought with the stone puppet before. As for that woman, Yixian had never seen her before. At this moment she had concealed her aura, so Yixian could not see through her. Alright, take off your cosmos ring and enter, Elder said. Yes. Yixian nodded and walked over. After taking off his cosmos ring, he slowly entered the pool. When his body was immersed in the 5 elements pool, he felt 5 types of energy enter his body. At this moment he understood that the 5 elements pool did not only increase the highest attribute, but also increase all 5 attributes together. At this moment, Yixian noticed that there was an old man sitting in the corner of the small room. He should be the old man guarding the 5 elements pool. His strength was unfathomable. You're third. When Yixian was about to close his eyes and wait for 8 days, Li Xiu suddenly opened his eyes in another corner. That's right. Yixian nodded. That's not bad. Where are you from? Li Xiu asked again. Green Cliff region, a small sect. Yixian casually replied. If Green Cliff region and Luosha region were to be compared, the former was like a baby. Naturally, the sects there were not up to par, so it could only be called a small sect. Hearing this, a strange look flashed across Li Xiu's eyes. There was a trace of disdain in his eyes. He could feel that Yixian was not strong. He was probably just a kid with good luck. This was good. When it came to the second round of the 100 Territories Summit, he would have one less opponent. Li Xiu did not ask again and waited quietly. Yixian's attention fell on the other woman. This woman was around 20 years old and had a pretty face. She stood motionlessly in another corner of the pool. I've never seen her before. It seems that she's a hidden expert. I just don't know which one of them has a 7-star evaluation. Yixian narrowed his eyes. He knew that among these 1,000 experts, there would definitely be a 7-star evaluation expert. Otherwise, the first one to set out would have a 6.5-star evaluation. A 7-star evaluation meant that one's strength was very strong and would not fall behind others. Therefore, Yixian guessed that one of these 2 people had a 7-star evaluation. Or perhaps both of them had a 7-star evaluation. My current attribute conversion is only 48, not even 50%. If I use the Demon God transformation, Earth Pulse, and Bahuang Sword, I should be able to contend with a 7-star evaluation. However, if I don't use Bahuang Sword, I'm afraid I won't be able to beat them. Yixian was very conflicted. However, these things should wait until 8 days later. After all, the 5 elements pool's upgrade was based on each person's aptitude. Some people had very little, while others could upgrade to the legendary level. It was not certain who would emerge victorious. However, just as Yixian was soaking in the 5 elements pool, outside the palace, territory leader, the 3rd-rank kid, has a pretty good aptitude. His attribute conversion has not reached 50% yet, but he was the first to obtain 5 tokens. Not bad. His aptitude is good and he's very young. If he's nurtured for a few years, he might be the 2nd Huang Tianyu. This Huang Tianyu has some ambitions after entering the Warlord Palace. I wonder how he's doing and whether he has broken through to the virtual god realm. A group of Luosha region experts were chatting. The Huang Tianyu that they were talking about was the genius whose attribute affinity had increased to the legendary level after soaking in the 5 elements pool. This genius was sent to the Warlord Palace by the Luosha region's territory leader. After passing the examination, he successfully joined the warlord palace and became a palace guard. Oh ho ho, it would be best if another one appeared, the Luosha region's territory leader said with a smile. At this moment, a white figure suddenly appeared in the sky above the central island. No one noticed his appearance. The figure held a folding fan in his hand, and then silently descended. Everyone. When the white figure landed above the Luosha region's territory leader, he suddenly spoke. Hearing this voice, everyone raised their heads in surprise, only to see a stranger standing above them. Who is it? The Luosha region's territory leader was shocked. He was at the peak of the spirit stage and was only one step away from the virtual god realm. Chapter 563. Translator. Transin editor. Transin. My surname is Jiang. However, this white figure was able to silently arrive above their heads. He was definitely not an ordinary person. Don't be nervous. If I wanted to kill you, you would already be dead. The white figure waved his fan and smiled. If Yi Xian was here, he would definitely recognize him. This was because the white figure was Jiang Tianjin, who had killed Wei Zhentian and tortured and humiliated him twice. What are you saying? The Luosha region ruler and the others were upset. However, they understood that the white figure in front of them was an empty god realm existence. It would be easy for an empty god realm expert to kill spirit realm experts like them. They could not understand why an empty god realm expert would appear here. Is there anything I can help you with? The Luosha region ruler asked respectfully. Jiang Tianjin did not beat around the bush and said, I know that you are holding a 100 Territories Summit. The winner will have the opportunity to enter the Warlord Hall, right? Yes. The Luosha region ruler nodded. 3 people have already entered the 5 elements pool, right? What are you going to do next? Jiang Tianjin asked. What are we going to do? The leader of Luosha region was stupefied. He turned his head and looked at the crowd. It's like this, the Battle Emperor Palace gave us 5 spots this time. Therefore, the top 10 cultivators will fight against each other and the last 5 will be chosen. I will go to the Battle Emperor Palace and take the exam. Pairs? That's great. Jiang Tianjin smiled and said. Then I order you to put the first and third place together. First and third place? The Luosha region ruler was stunned and refused. Sir, this is against the rules. Rules? What rules? Jiang Tianjin closed his fan and shouted. I am the rules. The Luosha region ruler's expression changed. Not only that, but the others also changed. They did not understand why the first and third place were put together. Could it be that the first and third place had angered the white figure? May I ask who you are? The Luosha region ruler did not answer immediately and asked. You don't need to know who I am. You only need to know that my surname is Jiang. Jiang Tianjin said coldly. Ginger. When this surname fell into everyone's ears, they also looked around blankly. Only the Luosha region's domain master reacted. Jiang, the king of Tul's palace? The Luosha region's domain master exclaimed. Only then did the group behind him react. It turned out that this Jiang was from the Jiang clan of the king of Tul's hall. This young man in white who was at the virtual god realm was actually from the Jiang family. One had to know that the Luosha region was adjacent to the Beast King Hall's Kaitian region, not the Tul King Hall. Then why would the Jiang clan appear in the Battle King Hall's territory? Your Excellency, we are under the jurisdiction of the Battle King Palace. The Luosha region's region master reminded him. The Battle King Hall, the Tul King Hall, and the Beast King Hall used to be one entity, but they later split up, dividing the entire eastern continent into 3 parts. The Luosha region was under the jurisdiction of the Warlord Hall. So what? I only know that I am in charge here. Jiang Tianjin said domineeringly. However, he also had the strength. A single virtual god realm powerhouse was enough to kill everyone here and sink all 6 islands. I want to know the reason. The Luosha region's domain master hesitated for a moment before asking. His question almost scared the group of experts behind him to death. The Luosha region's domain master was too bold. He dared to ask so many questions in front of a virtual god realm powerhouse. Wasn't he afraid of angering the other party and causing a massacre? Reason. It's just for fun. You can choose not to do as I say, but the consequences will be severe. Jiang Tianjin squinted his eyes. Everyone trembled. I understand. The Luosha region's domain master finally decided to compromise. This was something that could not be helped. After all, the other party was a virtual god realm powerhouse. Every virtual god realm powerhouse had the ability to destroy the heavens and earth. Even if these huge islands were in front of them, they could easily destroy them. Hence, they could not be provoked. Then I will leave first. Alright, pretend that I was never here. Zhang Tianjin laughed coldly and disappeared. Everyone present did not notice how he left. It was as if he had teleported. Speaking of which, they found it ridiculous. Was it possible to play around? If Zhang Tianjin came down to watch the battle, it would make sense. However, Zhang Tianjin actually used his strength to suppress everyone and privately set the battle order. This was too fake. I don't know. Who provoked him? The Luosha region's domain master and the others all thought so. They still did not understand. If someone really provoked Zhang Tianjin could kill the other party with a snap of his fingers. Why would he do this? Time passed day by day. Yixian arrived on the second night. He was the third. After him no one else came. On the third day the fourth came. Following that the fifth, sixth and 10th came. These people were very strong. None of them obtained the 5 elements token by luck. After they arrived, they were also brought into the 5 elements pool. At this time the 5 elements pool was already filled with 10 people. The 10th could only soak in the 5 elements pool for 1 day. However, this 1 day also benefited the 10th. Although there were many people in the 5 elements pool, each person's soak time was different. After 1 day, the 10th was asked to leave the 5 elements pool. 2 days later it was the 9th. The geniuses left one by one. In the end, only Yixian and the other 2 were left. At this time Yixian had been in the 5 elements pool for 7 days. In another hour he would have to leave the 5 elements pool. In these few days Yixian's attribute affinity slowly increased. He had also been paying attention to his attribute panel. Now, his earth attribute affinity had increased to the upper epic level. He was only a little bit away from the legendary level. Increase, don't stop. Just a little bit more, and you'll reach the legendary level. Although Yixian closed his eyes and quietly waited in the corner of the 5 elements pool, he was shouting in his heart. If he could reach the legendary level, his strength would soar again. This time, whoosh whoosh, a wind suddenly blew in the palace. The old man sitting in the corner opened his eyes and exclaimed, "The gathering of the fire attribute heaven and earth's chi of heaven and earth. Legendary?" Not long after, the door of the room was violently pushed open and a group of people walked in. "Who is it?" The Luosha region's domain master asked in horror. In the 5 elements pool, Yixian and the other woman opened their eyes and looked at Li Xiu in the other corner. Chapter 564. Translator. Nayerbo Studio Editor. Nayerbo Studio 3 Legends. Haha, great. I didn't expect another legend to appear this year. The Luosha region leader was grinning from ear to ear. Huang Tianyu also reached the legend level and successfully joined the Warlord Hall. Maybe Li Xiu can do it too. 5 spots, if one of them can join the Warlord Hall, that would be great. A group of people were discussing this matter. But at that moment, huff huff. The water attribute chi of heaven and earth in the room suddenly increased. Oh my god, another legend. The Luosha region leader and the others gasped. They wouldn't have come if it wasn't for them. Now 2 of them came at once. They were really lucky. If they gave these 2 to the Warlord Hall, they could exchange them for a large amount of cultivation resources. Yixian's face was gloomy. He was the only one left who hadn't broken through the epic level and reached the legend level. However, not long after Li Xiu and the woman increased their affinity to the fire attribute and water attribute to the legend level. Ding! The host's affinity to the earth attribute has increased. It is currently at the lower legend level. The earth attribute gathered again after the fire and water attributes. The room was filled with 3 types of chi of heaven and earth, almost squeezing the other 2 out of the room. The earth attribute chi of heaven and earth, how is this possible? It's too fake. The 3 of them reached the legend level almost at the same time. Is this a miracle? I remember that this should be the last day of this kid's life. The crowd was in an uproar. However, the Luosha region leader's face turned pale in an instant. He suddenly remembered the Zhang family disciple from 8 days ago. The first place was going to fight the third place. Under normal circumstances, it was a battle of life and death. However, the first place Li Xiu and the third place Yixian had both increased their affinity to the legend level. The people present, including the Luosha region leader, didn't have a legend level affinity. Yixian and the other two juniors were all legend level. If Yixian and Li Xiu were to fight, both of them would be injured. If Yixian wasn't careful, Yixian would die. Others might not know, but the Luosha region leader and the others knew Li Xiu's level. Li Xiu was able to defeat Yang when he was on the back of the Cloud Eagle. However, at that time he still had his strength. Li Xiu's Li's was to Li Xiu's to himself, to the Luosha region leader, to Li Xiu Yang. As for Yixian, his affinity wasn't even 50%. His aptitude was far from Li Xiu's. This is bad. I don't know who provoked the Zhang family. If it's this brat, then it's fine. If it's Li Xiu, the Luosha region too. Li too. Is Li. Li Xiu Yang Tian. Yang. To Li Xiu. To Li. To Xiu Yang to Tian. The Luosha region's domain master reacted instantly. This was because Murong Shui also received a 7-star evaluation, which was also given by him personally. If Li Xiu provoked Zhang Tianjin, then Li Xiu and Murong Shui would fight. That way both sides would suffer. That was to say, the one who provoked Zhang Tianjin wasn't Li Xiu. It was Yixian. Sigh. To provoke an empty god realm expert. What a pity. The Luosha region leader shook his head helplessly. However, 8 days ago, Zhang Tianjin only asked him to put Yixian and Li Xiu together. If Yixian was strong enough or admitted defeat, there was still a chance. The Luosha region leader wanted to accept Yixian and nurture Yixian for a few years before giving him to the Warlord Palace. Now, even if the Luosha region leader had 10 guts, he wouldn't dare to accept Yixian. Yixian had provoked an empty god realm expert. Moreover, he was from the Zhang family of the Weapon King Palace. Zhang Tianjin obviously wanted to torture Yixian and kill Yixian. How could the Luosha region leader protect him? Kid, I don't have the ability to help you. You can only count on yourself. The Luosha region leader thought to himself. He thought that Yixian must have provoked Zhang Tianjin by accident. However, due to Zhang Tianjin's identity, he didn't want to do it himself. Then Li Xiu would do it for him. Yixian, Li Xiu, and Murong Shui's affinity had all increased to the legendary level. However, because they had just broken through, the Luosha region leader didn't disturb them. Soon Yixian's time was up. He was asked to come out. I didn't expect the 5 elements pool to be so effective. It increased my affinity to the earth element from the epic level to the legendary level. Yixian was very satisfied. He was the third, so he only had 8 days. The second place had 9 days and the first place had 10 days. He still had to wait for 2 days. When he came out of the palace, he saw that there were already close to 100 people outside. These people were all looking at Yixian with envy. However, they also received a corresponding reward. Kid, you will stay here for 2 days. After 2 days, we will draw lots for the battle. There are 5 slots. As long as you win 1 battle, you will be sent by the region leader to participate in the Warlord Palace's Palace Guard assessment, said the old man who had brought Yixian in. Draw lots for the battle? Yixian was stunned. There were only 5 slots. In other words, the top 10 of them would fight each other in pairs. Haha, that's right. As long as I don't meet Li Xiu and Murong Shui, I have almost 100% chance of winning. Yixian was overjoyed. There were a total of 10 people who had entered the 5 elements pool. Yixian felt that these people weren't very strong, but compared to him they were still a lot weaker. Even if he didn't use the Bahuang sword, he still had the strength to kill his opponents. It would be fine as long as he didn't meet the first or second place. However, he didn't know that the order of the battle had already been decided. Soon 2 days had passed. The first one to come out was Murong Shui, which meant that she was the second place. Then, the first place was undoubtedly Li Xiu. Although Li Xiu had advanced to the legendary level at the same time as Yixian and Murong Shui, he was the first place. He stayed 1 day longer than Murong Shui, and 2 days longer than Yixian. Coupled with his own strength, this battle was a sure win. Murong Shui was the same. As long as she didn't meet Li Xiu, Her 7-star evaluation was almost guaranteed. After Li Xiu came out, the region leader of Luosha region said loudly, "All right, the top 10 are here. Next, we will fight for the position of the palace guard of the warlord palace. We have already decided the order of the battle. Next, please listen carefully. The first and third place, the second and seventh place, the fourth and sixth place, the fifth and 10th place, the eighth and ninth place." Chapter 565. Translator. Nayoibo Studio Editor. Nayoibo Studio Fair? When the Luosha region ruler's words fell into the ears of the 100 geniuses, their bodies trembled. They already knew that the affinity of the top 3 geniuses had reached the legendary level. Therefore, they thought that the Luosha region ruler would use some tricks to separate the 3 geniuses. Who would have thought that the Luosha region ruler would be so fair as to put the first and third geniuses together? Oh my god! The 2 legendary geniuses are fighting for a spot. The region ruler is indeed fair. This is bad. The third geniuses have good aptitude. If they fight against Li Xiu, they won't have any chance of winning. That's fine. That kid looks young. As long as they nurture him for 5 years, they can always come back next time. A group of people discussed. At the same time, Yixian was helpless. He thought that he had used up all his luck to meet Li Xiu. He was sure that he had never offended the Luosha region ruler. However, he was guessing in his heart. He guessed that the Luosha region's domain lord already knew of his strength, which was why he set him and Li Xiu together. This is bad. With so many people, I can't use the Bahuang sword. I might not be able to win if I only rely on other things. Yixian thought to himself. The reward for this battle was a spot to be a palace guard of the warlord palace. He had to enter the warlord palace because it was a clue left by his father. Only by entering the warlord palace could he get the next clue. Therefore, he had to fight. He had to defeat Li Xiu. Alright, let's start from the 8th and 9th geniuses. The Luosha region ruler sighed helplessly and said. The crowd was a little disappointed because they thought that the first battle would be between Yixian and Li Xiu. However, it did not matter. There were only 5 battles and it would be over soon. You can admit defeat in this battle. The winner will get a spot to be a palace guard of the warlord palace. After hearing the Luosha region ruler's words, the 8th and 9th geniuses stepped forward. Please. Please. The 2 geniuses were about the same age and their evaluations were 5.5 stars. Therefore, this battle might be worth watching. However, it was a pity that the person ranked 8th had a water attribute physique, while the person ranked 9th had a wood attribute physique. The water attribute was countered. Thus, the 9th ranked disciple won and obtained the opportunity to participate in the Battle King Palace's examination. Next, it was the 5th and 10th place. There was a great disparity in strength in this battle. The 5th ranked person won and obtained a spot. The third battle was between the 4th and 6th place. There was no suspense. In 4th place was the stone puppet, who had hidden his strength during the evaluation. His true combat strength had reached 6.5 star, close to 7 star, while his opponent was only 5 star, so the stone puppet easily suppressed his opponent and won. These 3 matches were just average to everyone. But in the next round, everyone's eyes widened. Murong Shui, the daughter of the mayor of one of the main cities in Luosha region, was blessed by the heavens. She was only 22 years old, but her attribute conversion had reached 70%. After soaking in the 5 elements pool for 9 days, her water affinity had broken through to the legendary level. Her opponent was ranked 7th. Although he had also concealed his strength, he only had a rating of 5.5 stars. 22 years old and 70% attribute conversion? After hearing the discussions of the others, Yixian also came back to his senses. He had also reached 21 years old, 1 year younger than Murong Shui. But Murong Shui's attribute conversion had surpassed his by too much. But this was to be expected. Murong Shui's father was the mayor of Luosha region, and his attribute conversion had reached 90%. He was also a strong person. Murong Shui grew up with a golden spoon in her mouth. How bad could her aptitude be? At this time, the 7th ranked disciple walked out and said, I've heard of Miss Murong's great name. Although I'm a little overconfident, but I still hope to receive one of Miss Murong's sword attacks. When these words came out, the surrounding people were all shocked. His attribute conversion had not even reached 60%, and he dared to say that he would receive one of Murong Xue's sword attacks? He was courting death. One had to know that the disparity in strength in this battle was too great. It was almost impossible for Murong Xue to lose, so this young man's best choice was to admit defeat. Okay. Murong Xue also walked out without hesitation. She gently pulled out her long sword and then slashed it out. This slash had an ordinary color, and it was just an attack of pure qi of no attribute. However, due to the suppression of her realm, her opponent did not even have time to react before his right arm was chopped off. Rip! A severed arm was thrown up into the air. The reason this young man risked his life to come out was actually to make a good impression on the beauty. He was really bold. Thank you for your mercy, Miss Murong. The 7th-ranked disciple expressed his gratitude. Everyone thought in their hearts, this person is so scheming. Murong Xue defeated the 7th-ranked disciple and obtained the 4th place for the Palace Guard assessment. Then it was time for the 5th round. This round was the key. I heard that Li Xiu's attribute conversion has also exceeded 70%. Now, his attribute affinity has increased to the legendary level. Among the geniuses present except for Murong Xue, I don't think anyone can fight with him. That guy's attribute affinity is also legendary. It's a pity that it's a few years too late. He doesn't have the strength to contend with Li Xiu. I think he'll admit defeat immediately. Yes, that's definitely the case. Such a genius will definitely be carefully nurtured by the zone leader. He'll participate in the 100 Territories Summit in 5 years. The surrounding people were whispering to each other. However, at this moment Yi Xian slowly walked out of the crowd. What? This guy actually walked out? Could it be that he really wants to fight with Li Xiu? What kind of joke is this? Has this guy's attribute conversion reached 60%? He's really courting death. Everyone was shocked, including Li Xiu. This guy actually dares to come out. Isn't he afraid that I'll kill him with one strike? Li Xiu thought in his heart. He narrowed his eyes and did not move. He shouted, "You want to fight with me?" That's right. Yi Xian had already walked out. Humph. This is the first time I've seen someone who overestimates himself. Don't think that you're qualified to challenge me, just because your attribute affinity has reached the legendary level. Li Xiu still did not move. He stood in place and shouted, "How do you know that I'm overestimating myself if we haven't fought? Maybe you're the one who's overestimating yourself?" Yi Xian took out a high-quality celestial weapon. "Fine, I'll teach you a lesson." Li Xiu snorted and jumped out. He also understood that Yi Xian's aptitude must have caught the eye of the Luosha zone leader, so he did not dare to kill him. Yi Xian took a deep breath and said, "Come on." Chapter 566. The first profound Li Xiu's attribute conversion had already reached 70%. The martial arts he practiced were all top-notch. Moreover, his fire attribute qi countered Yi Xian's earth attribute. More importantly, he couldn't use the Bahuang sword in this battle. Therefore, Yi Xian was going to go all out. "Brat, I want you to see that not just any random cat or dog can challenge me." Li Xiu shouted loudly as he slashed at Yi Xian. His realm was the highest among all the geniuses. Murong Xue had only used one strike to deal with her opponent, so Li Xiu wanted to use one strike as well. This flaming sword qi was extremely sharp. It was aimed at Yi Xian's left hand. If Yi Xian was hit by this sword qi, his left hand would probably be incinerated in an instant. I won't hide anymore. Demon God transformation. Suddenly, the shadow of a demon god appeared behind Yi Xian and merged into his body. At this moment, his eyes were pitch black. This is Old Devil Wan's demon god transformation. Luosha region's domain leader, Tornado, and the others were all shocked. When Yi Xian left Blade Island that day, Tornado didn't follow him, so he didn't know that Yi Xian had obtained the Tranquility Seed. He also didn't know that Yi Xian had learned the Demon God transformation. The Demon God transformation was created thousands of years ago by a Void God realm elite. That person was Old Devil Wan. This Old Devil Wan was a little selfish. He didn't pass down the Demon God transformation, so it was passed down after his death. But who would have thought that Yi Xian had comprehended the Demon God transformation on his own? Li Xiu was stunned for a moment. So he was hiding his strength. But can you block this move? Li Xiu thought to himself. Although Yi Xian had used the demon god transformation, the surrounding elites didn't think that he could block it. At most he could dodge. But Yi Xian didn't want to dodge. He had been hiding his strength in order to wait for this moment. Now that the time had come, what was the point of hiding it? Sword of the Earth splitting. Second level pulse of the Earth. A brownish-yellow sword chi slashed out and collided with the flaming sword chi. Although the Earth attribute was countered by Li Xiu's fire attribute, it was still an attribute chi. Its power was much stronger than normal chi. Moreover, the sword of the Earth attribute had increased affinity, so Yi Xian could only use Earth attribute chi to counterattack. Bang! The flaming sword chi and the Earth splitter sword suddenly exploded, and the shockwave swept out, shaking some people to the point that they couldn't open their eyes. Yi Xian had blocked. What? The domain leader of the Luosha region was already prepared to watch Yi Xian be killed, but he didn't expect Yi Xian to actually be able to block it. One had to know that Yi Xian's attribute conversion was only at 48%, not even 50%. Li Xiu's conversion. There was a differently. Coupled with the fact that he had an attribute advantage, the difference in attribute conversion might be close to 30%. Yi Xian was actually able to block a 30% difference in attribute conversion. Why was that? Battle Yi. Li Xiu cried out in shock. He couldn't understand. An attack that could kill someone with 60% attribute conversion was blocked by Yi Xian, who hadn't even reached 50% attribute conversion. This scene was out of everyone's expectations. Even the Luosha region's domain master and tornado had misjudged him. Only Morong Shui frowned slightly, as if she had realized something. Is this kid more talented than Morong Shui? But the yuan qi he used was only about 50%. It can't be higher. The difference between 50% and 70% attribute conversion is huge. How could he block it? Li Xiu must have gone easy on him. Or is Li Xiu a paper tiger? When Li Xiu heard that, he immediately shouted, "What did you say?" The person who called him a paper tiger shrunk his neck and didn't dare to say more. Yi Xian had blocked Li Xiu's attack with the sword of the Earth-splitting sword, which contained the second-level pulse of the Earth. Moreover, it took him 3 moves to block Li Xiu's attack. This was the difference. "I don't believe you can block it again." Li Xiu shouted in his heart and slashed again. Yi Xian had been waiting for this for a long time. He slashed 3 more times. Bang! The 3-sword of the Earth-splitting sword collided with the flaming sword aura and exploded. This time Luosha's domain master understood. Ultimacy Earth-throbbing sword? Luosha's domain master couldn't help but exclaim. Not only that, the surrounding experts also saw it. Earth elemental spirits were as rare as wood elemental spirits. It was relatively rare compared to the other 3 elemental spirits. However, this didn't mean that they were ignorant. They could still recognize ultimacy. What ultimacy? The surrounding people trembled. They suspected that they had misheard. Ultimacy? Impossible, how did you comprehend ultimacy? Li Xiu couldn't believe it. He had seen his flaming sword aura being shaken twice. This was the earth-throbbing sword of the ultimacy of Earth. Everyone was stunned. Luosha's domain master was even more so. His attribute conversion had reached 100 points. He was only 1 step away from breaking through to the empty god realm. However, if he wanted to break through to the empty god realm, he would need to comprehend an ultimacy. He had been stuck for several years, but he still couldn't comprehend an ultimacy. Although the 5 elements pool could increase attribute affinity, the increase was different for everyone. Luosha's domain master had only reached the upper epic level. The 5 elements pool had no effect on him. Therefore, he had been stuck at the peak of the spirit realm and couldn't break through. However, today he saw a super genius who had comprehended an ultimacy at the spirit realm. Unfortunately, this super genius had offended an empty god realm powerhouse. What a pity, what a pity! Luosha's domain master and the others thought. They suddenly remembered Zhang Tianjin from 10 days ago. If he only has this much strength, I have a chance of winning. Yi Xian narrowed his eyes. In fact, he had another advantage, and that was the anti-flight formation. On the central island, other than the experts, Li Xiu couldn't fly. This way, his battle dragon's 10 steps could be used as a trump card. When necessary, he might be able to catch his opponent off guard. Thinking about this, Yi Xian continued to attack. The vigor realm and spirit realm mainly depended on one's physique. When one reached the essence realm, the increase in physique would not be as great. It was the same for the spirit realm. In terms of physique, Yixian's physique was about the same as Li Xiu's. However, his attack speed was faster than his opponent's. After all, he still had the Fist Emperor bloodline, which could increase his attack speed by 30%. Sword of the Earth Splitting. Sword of the Earth Splitting. Sword of the Earth Splitting. Yixian stepped on the battle dragon's stomp as he attacked. Chapter 567. Translator, Transin Editor, Transimpulsating Guard. I'm going to kill you. Li Xiu felt humiliated. He roared and began to attack crazily. Now he dared not underestimate Yixian. If he lost, he might as well kill himself. At this moment, Yixian saw Li Xiu attack. This was a good opportunity. Battle Dragon's 10 steps. Earth's Pulsation 2 steps. Although the Battle Dragon's Stomp was the lowest level of Earth attribute martial arts, it was extremely powerful after incorporating the Earth's Pulsation. Yixian had used it to shatter quite a few people's heads, as well as their leg bones. This time it was a great opportunity. Wang. Li Xiu, who was attacking, suddenly felt a roar in his head and pain in his legs. His first reaction was to know that he had been hit. In the blink of an eye, his fire attribute true energy gushed out and protected his feet. But at this moment, Yixian's earth-splitting sword arrived. Peng! Li Xiu's reaction was quite fast. He casually slashed apart the earth-splitting sword. Otherwise, this sword would have been enough to take his life. My attributes are restrained. This is terrible. Yixian was helpless. He thought that if Li Xiu's true energy was of the metal attribute, he would have the upper hand now. Peng! 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 The roars fell into the ears of the surrounding people. They were so shocked that they prostrated themselves on the ground. A person with less than 50% attribute conversion could actually challenge someone with 70% attribute conversion using ultimacy. This ultimacy was so powerful. This is too scary. If this kid had the same attribute conversion as Li Xiu would have been killed instantly. The Luosha region governor thought to himself. At the same time, he was very envious because Yixian had comprehended ultimacy. This meant that as long as Yixian's attribute conversion reached 100, he would be able to break through to the virtual god realm without any shackles. 3 earth-splitting swords can only block 1 flaming sword aura from the opponent. But my move is very insidious. The opponent can't find the time to attack me, and is in a passive position. Yixian thought as he attacked. He was able to suppress Li Xiu temporarily because he took the opportunity to attack while Li Xiu was in a daze. If he had taken out the Bahuang sword, Li Xiu would have been a corpse. Unfortunately, he did not dare to take out the Bahuang sword. After all, it was perfectly justified to kill and rob others of their treasures. If a virtual god weapon appeared, it was understandable that the Luosha region's domain master would kill everyone here. Earth-splitting sword. Battle Dragon's 10 steps. Earth's 2 waves. Yixian's to say Li Xiu be as Li. Li Xiu had to defend against the earth-splitting sword while also defending against the War Dragon Stomp. At this moment he was already cursing Yixian in his heart. Editors Fox as art_editors Lucas_Lily translation Li Xiu to die to kill Fan as guard as Li as. Originally, Yixian's attribute affinity had reached the legendary level, which made him very unhappy. Now that Yixian had comprehended the ultimacy, Li Xiu was enraged. Li Xiu enjoyed the discussions of the people around him. However, after Yixian appeared, he was kicked out of the group. All the discussions revolved around Yixian. This made him very unhappy. This kid is so strong. After this, the governor might make an exception and let him join us for the assessment. This is not a good thing for me. Li Xiu thought. He was very confident that he would join the Warlord Hall. Murong Shue's appearance was within his expectations. But now there was another Yixian. This meant that if they joined the Warlord Hall successfully, the 3 of them would be valued by the Warlord Hall. How could it be the same to value 3 people in 1 person? Most importantly, if Yixian joined the Warlord Hall successfully, the Warlord Hall would definitely nurture Yixian first. When that time came, he and Murong Shui would be in an awkward situation. Therefore, Yixian had to die. Kill, I'm going to kill you. Li Xiu roared in his heart. His aura suddenly surged. What? Yi Xian was shocked. Li Xiu still had a trump card. Although the increase in strength of Li Xiu's martial arts couldn't compare to the Demon God chapter, the gap between Yi Xian and him wasn't too big. With this increase in strength, Yi Xian probably wouldn't be able to hold on for long. Die, kid. After Li Xiu's aura surged, he quickly charged at Yi Xian. Sword of the Earth splitting. Battle Dragon's 10 steps. Pulse of the Earth 2nd level. Yi Xian quickly made his move. At this moment his face had sunk to the bottom. Li Xiu's strength had far surpassed his. If he persisted, there was a high possibility of an accident. Although he had the blood of the sacred tree of life in his body, Li Xiu's qi was of the fire attribute and had the effect of burning. If he was grazed, Yi Xian would be in danger. Admit defeat? Or take out the Bahuang sword and kill Li Xiu? Yi Xian hesitated in his heart. If he took out the Bahuang sword, he did have the ability to kill Li Xiu. However, he could not guarantee that the Luosha region's domain leader would not be jealous. Even if he had to kill everyone, he must obtain the Bahuang sword. He did not dare to take the risk. No, he could not take the risk. If he died, what would happen to Skywater Island? What would happen to Song Suijing and the others? Admit defeat? Yi Xian's mind suddenly flashed. Sometimes it was necessary to admit defeat. After all, where there was life there was hope. Although he would lose the quota this time, he heard that there were more than one quota in Warlord Palace. Yi Xian did not use an invitation card at the 100 Leaders Summit, so this was not his only chance. Kid, go to hell. Li Xiu slashed at Yi Xian with all his strength. Yi Xian was ready to admit defeat, but when he stepped on the floor. Ding! Host has comprehended the pulsating guard. What? Yi Xian was stunned. Pulsating guard? He hurriedly glanced at his attribute panel and saw that there was an additional ultimacy. No, it was the pulsating earth ultimacy. There was an additional branch, the pulsating guard. He hurriedly sensed it. Immediately after, a special energy surged out of his body. Bang! 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 The 3 earth-shattering swords collided with the flaming sword qi. Even though it contained the pulsating earth ultimacy, it was unable to disperse the flaming sword qi. Yi Xian widened his eyes as he watched the flaming sword qi hit his body. No, it should have hit the special energy outside his body. Bang! The flaming sword qi shook twice in an instant and then dissipated. This? Yi Xian was stunned. The pulsating guard, as the name suggested, used the pulsating earth ultimacy for defense. The pulsating earth ultimacy was used for offense, while the pulsating guard was used for defense. Furthermore, the pulsating guard was the same as the pulsating earth ultimacy. After sorting out his thoughts, Yi Xian's eyes shot out 2 rays of light. If he had this pulsating guardian, then he would have the strength to fight Li Xiu. Chapter 568. Reversing the situation. Haha, Li Xiu, you're finished. Yi Xian suddenly laughed. Previously, his 3 earth-shattering swords were able to disperse Li Xiu's attack. Now that Li Xiu had used his trump card, he might need 4. However, Yi Xian could only throw out 3 earth-shattering swords. Now that he had comprehended the pulsating guard, the remaining flame sword qi could be blocked by the pulsating guard. Yi Xian was safe. This is the pulsating guard? The Luosha region's ruler recognized it. Previously, he was fortunate enough to see an empty God Realm powerhouse. Furthermore, it was a rare earth attribute, so he recognized it. The pulsating earth wasn't the only profound earth attribute. There were several other kinds. However, the difficulty of comprehending the pulsating earth was ranked in the top 3. It was even more difficult to comprehend the pulsating guard branch of the pulsating earth. However, Yi Xian had actually comprehended it. Genius, this is a genius. The Luosha region's ruler was filled with admiration. He had broken through to the spirit realm several decades ago, but he hadn't comprehended a single profound. Therefore, he couldn't help but be excited. Unfortunately, he suddenly remembered Zhang Tianjin's words. Yi Xian might die here. Even if he wasn't killed by Li Xiu, he might die in the Warlord Palace's palace guard assessment. What a pity! At this moment, Yi Xian, who had comprehended the pulsating guard, began to attack Li Xiu crazily. What the hell is this? Li Xiu was also shocked. He didn't realize that Yixian had suddenly comprehended it and thought that it was Yixian's trump card. The situation was instantly reversed. Now it was a tie. What is that? I can't see it, but I can feel the fluctuations. The entire space seems to be distorted. I'm not sure either. However, there is a martial art called the flame protection that is similar to this. How can a trash martial art like the flame protection be compared to this? Don't you know what realm Li Xiu is at? Is this also a profound? Think so too. After all, none of us understand profound. I'm afraid that even the ruler hasn't seen it before. The group of people began to discuss in low voices again. At this time there was a white figure above the crowd. It was Yixian's cousin Jiang Tianjin. TSK. He has even comprehended Pulse Guard. This kid really can't be left alive. Jiang Tianjin held a folding fan in his hand. Although he had a smile on his face, his eyes were filled with killing intent. I even wanted to give his head to Auntie as a gift. Forget it, I suddenly want to see him grow up. Then I want to see the expression on his father's face when he is ravaged countless times. Jiang Tianjin's eyes flashed, and then he disappeared. He already knew the outcome of this battle, so it didn't matter if he watched or not. On the ground. Li Xiu, weren't you very proud just now? Come and kill me. Yixian shouted. Stinking brat, don't be so arrogant. Li Xiu replied as he gritted his teeth. Ever since Yixian comprehended Pulse Guard, Li Xiu's threat to Yixian had greatly decreased. As long as Yixian didn't reveal any flaws, it would be very difficult for him to kill Yixian. However, Yixian's true qi was still at its peak, while his normal true qi and fire attribute true qi had already decreased by half. Impossible. Impossible. I was actually beaten by this brat to the point where I couldn't even fight back. This is impossible. Li Xiu shouted in his heart. Who was he? He was the top genius of the Luosha region. He was only 25 years old, but his attribute conversion had already reached 70%. If he was given another 20 years, he was confident that he could break through to the peak of the spirit stage. During this time he would comprehend a fire attribute profound. Then, he would be able to break through to the Void God realm. Void God realm. How long had it been since the Luosha region had a Void God realm powerhouse? As long as he broke through, then the name Li Xiu would be known by everyone. Die. You must die. I, Li Xiu, will step on your corpse to enter the Warlord Hall. Li Xiu was about to go crazy. He no longer defended and began to madly attack Yixian. A good opportunity. Yixian's eyes lit up. Since his opponent wasn't defending, wouldn't that be exactly what he wanted? At the very most, he would exchange blood for blood. Swish! Swish! Suddenly, two sword beams flashed. Bang! Bang! Yixian and Li Xiu's shoulders were hit at the same time. Humph! You have the earth attribute. Even if you petrify me, my fire attribute true qi can quickly dissolve your petrification. Li Xiu thought in his heart. However, he was wrong. Yixian's attack didn't only contain petrification. After all, it was the earth-splitting sword that contained the second layer of the earth pulse. After the petrification, there were two vibrations. Crack! Li Xiu's shoulder instantly exploded, and a large hole appeared on his shoulder. Damn it! Li Xiu cursed angrily and focused his eyes. At this moment, Yixian was holding the long sword in his hand and cutting off his burning left shoulder diagonally. Only a part of it was connected to his left arm. However, in the next moment, Li Xiu was stunned. He saw that Yixian's left shoulder, which was constantly spurting blood, was recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. In less than a second, his left shoulder grew back. How was this possible? Not only was Li Xiu shocked, everyone present was shocked, including the Luosha region's territorial ruler. This kid, does he have the earth attribute or the wood attribute? No, even the wood attribute spirit wouldn't have such a powerful effect. Did he consume the holy seed of life beforehand? That must be it. He must have consumed the holy seed of life when we weren't paying attention and grew his left shoulder. The surrounding people were exclaiming in surprise. Even the Luosha region's territorial ruler and the others looked at each other because they didn't see when Yixian consumed the holy seed of life. However, there were no rules in this battle. Everything was a part of one's strength. Even if one used poison or concealed weapons, it was fine. Therefore, it was okay to consume the holy elixir of recovery during a battle. Cunning kid. Let's see how you recover this time. Li Xiu cursed in his heart and prepared to exchange blood with Yi Xian again. This was exactly what Yi Xian wanted. This time, let's see if you can still resolve it. Yi Xian's eyes flashed and he suddenly slashed out with the earth splitter that he had been accumulating power for a long time. Whoosh! Whoosh! The two sword rays swept past each other but didn't collide. These two attacks once again landed on each other's bodies. Yi Xian was still hit in the shoulder, but Li Xiu was hit in the chest. Bang! The earth splitter exploded in front of Li Xiu's chest and instantly split his chest open. The wound was so deep that his bones could be seen. Li Xiu couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. He felt bad because his cultivation level was about to drop. Rip! Yi Xian's pulsating guard was also broken by his flaming sword qi, and then slashed on his shoulder. In an instant the flames spread rapidly. Chapter 569. Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios Die. Yi Xian ruthlessly drew his sword and once again cut off his shoulder. In less than a second it grew back. Oh my god. He hid 2 life saint seeds in his mouth. 1 life saint seed is already so hard to get, but he got 3 in a day. What a joke! With his strength, he could get 10 in a day. This kid, he wanted to fight to the death with Li Xiu from the beginning. He never thought of admitting defeat. Nonsense, he has comprehended ultimacy. If Warlord Palace knew, they would definitely focus on nurturing him. The surrounding geniuses could not help but exclaim. Li Xiu's face was gloomy. He did not know why, but his heart was beating wildly. He could no longer hear the voices of the people around him, only the sound of his own heartbeat. If he doesn't die, I won't be able to eat or sleep in peace. Fight! Li Xiu was already prepared to fight to the death. Yi Xian had comprehended ultimacy, and was much more talented than him. If Yi Xian did not die now, he would be the one to die in the future. Kill! Li Xiu shouted and rushed toward Yi Xian. Good timing. Yi Xian was also prepared for close combat. He knew that Li Xiu was already at the end of his strength, but if they fought from a distance, the Luosha region's domain master would probably save Li Xiu before he was killed. At that time he would have wasted an interspatial ring. In an instant the two figures approached each other and attacked wildly. Li Xiu's realm upgrade time was almost up, and he did not have much true qi left. If he could not kill Yi Xian this time he would be dead for sure. Therefore he had to be extremely focused and slay Yi Xian under his sword. Unfortunately, Yi Xian had the pulsating guard now, so his attacks could hardly threaten Yi Xian. However, at this moment, Yi Xian's pitch-black eyes suddenly turned white. The duration of the demon god transformation had actually passed at this time. Haha kid, you're finished. Seeing that Yi Xian had returned to its original state, Li Xiu laughed in his heart. How could such a martial art be used twice in a row? But Yi Xian could be used continuously. This is my chance. Demon god transformation. Another phantom of the demon god condensed behind him and entered Yi Xian's body. His aura skyrocketed again in an instant. What? Li Xiu was shocked. He had been careless when he saw Yi Xian's aura weaken. But to his surprise, Yi Xian actually used the demon god transformation again. Not good. The Luosha region's domain master reacted and prepared to attack. After all, Li Xiu was also a genius. However, just as he was about to make a move, a head was thrown into the air. It was Li Xiu's head. The Luosha region's domain master was stunned. He had wanted to intervene, but he was one step too slow. What a waste of a genius. Initially, he felt that it was a pity for Yi Xian, but now he felt that it was a pity for Li Xiu. In the next moment he thought of one thing. That mysterious Zhang family expert allowed the first and third place to fight. Now that the third place Yi Xian had killed the first place Li Xiu, would that expert make a move? Or could it be that he was wrong from the start? Did the other party think that Yi Xian would win from the start? The Luosha region's domain master hurriedly glanced around, but did not see anyone in the air. Yi Xian wins. Tornado announced. Li Xiu's head fell off. Naturally, Yi Xian had won. This was an indisputable fact. At this moment, Yixian walked over and took Li Xiu's universe ring under the watchful eyes of the crowd. Ding! The host's Earth attribute conversion has increased to 50 points. The system notified. The people present were not weaklings. Even if Yixian had concealed his aura, they could still sense it. Damn, he broke through. This kid is really a monster. He's so scary. Where did he come from? Not only did his attribute affinity increase to the legendary level, but he also comprehended the ultimacy. In the end, he broke through after the battle. Is he the reincarnation of an elite? Looks like our Luosha region is going to be famous. The people around them were so shocked that they could not calm down. As for Yixian, he couldn't help but smile. He finally won. Not only did his attribute affinity increase to the legendary level, but his attribute conversion had also reached 50%. If it doubled, he could break through to the virtual god realm. The virtual god realm. At this moment, the Luosha region's domain master suddenly said, "Alright, the 5th slot is out. This is the Warlord Hall's Palace Guard Assessment Certificate. Keep it well." After he finished speaking, he threw a quaint token with the word battle printed on it to Yixian and the other 4. Then he continued, "The 100 Leaders Summit has ended. You can rest here and wait for me to return. You can also leave immediately. As for the 5 of you, I will personally lead you to the Warlord Hall." Yes, everyone nodded in response. In the next moment, the 9 heavens cloud rock in the sky slowly descended. The 100 Leaders Summit had ended. Since the others were not in a hurry, they naturally did not need the 9 heavens cloud rock. The 9 heavens cloud rock was now given to Yixian and the other 4. Let's go. The Luosha region's domain master jumped onto the 9 heavens cloud rock. Yixian and the other 4 quickly followed. After they got on, the Luosha region's domain master said again, "The 5 of you are qualified to participate in the Warlord Hall's Palace Guard assessment. I will send you there first. You can stay there for the time being." Originally, the 5 of them could have rested for a few days before going. However, the Luosha region's domain master wanted to claim credit, so he set off immediately. After all, there might be a virtual god realm elite watching them. If Yixian died, he would not have a chance. One should know that Yixian had comprehended the earth pulsation and earth protection. His attribute affinity had reached the legendary level. He would definitely be heavily nurtured by the Warlord Hall. He did not need the reward. However, if he introduced Yixian to the Warlord Hall, he might be able to receive guidance from an empty god realm elite. At that time, he might be able to comprehend an abstruse meaning and break through to the empty god realm. The 9 heavens cloud rock immediately left and flew towards the Warlord Hall. Yixian Murong Shui Shi Shao Lin Feng Wang En. The Luosha region's domain master glanced at the 5 of them and said, "The assessment of the Warlord Hall is different every time. I don't know the specifics. You have to be careful." Yes. Yixian and the other 4 slightly nodded. There is still a long way to the Warlord Hall. You don't have to be so nervous. When the Luosha region's domain master finished speaking, he looked at Yixian and asked, "Yixian, can you share your experience of comprehending an abstruse meaning with us?" Experience. Yixian was stupefied. He realized that Murong Shui and the other 4 were also looking at Yixian. Even though the 5 of them were geniuses, Yixian was too monstrous. Even if the 4 of them joined forces, they would not be able to defeat him. Chapter 570. Battle King Hall. That's right, Brother Yi, please share your experience with me. I'm also of the Earth attribute. The stone puppet couldn't help but ask. He was of the Earth attribute and so was Yixian. Yixian's experience would be most useful to him. Yixian paused for a moment then said, "Actually, I don't know how I comprehended it, but I can only summarize the throbbing pulse of the earth into one word, quake." Then he took out 2 books and threw them to the stone puppet, saying, "These are the 2 martial arts I comprehended from the throbbing pulse of the earth. Brother, sure, you can try learning them." Sort of the earth splitting. Battle Dragon Stomp. The stone puppet caught the 2 books, glanced at them and said, "Many thanks, Brother Yi." These were the martial arts Yixian had copied from the Devouring system after spending some Devouring crystals. He had indeed comprehended the profound from these 2 martial arts. Although these 2 martial arts were of the lowest level, they might be useful to the stone puppet. Then what's the pulsating guard? From what I know, the throbbing pulse of the earth is extremely difficult to comprehend, and the pulsating guard, a branch of the throbbing pulse of the earth, is even more difficult. The Luosha region's domain master couldn't help but ask. The throbbing pulse of the earth can be integrated into any martial arts to increase its power, while the pulsating guard is used for defense. This pulsating guard, I've only just comprehended it, Yixian casually replied. Levels could be increased by devouring, but he really didn't know how to comprehend profound. Just comprehended it? Everyone was shocked. It turned out that Yixian was really suppressed to the brink of despair, and then his potential was stimulated, and he suddenly comprehended the pulsating guard. Genius, he was really a super genius. At this time, Yixian suddenly asked, Sir Domain Master, may I ask how many types of profound earth are there? This kid only comprehended it recently, so I don't know much about it. I'm not very clear about the specifics, I've only heard of a few. The pulsating pulse of the earth is one of them, and the pulsating guard is a branch of the pulsating pulse of the earth. Besides that, the profound of earth includes strength and gravity. As for the rest, I don't know. The Luosha region's domain master paused for a moment before he continued. If we were to talk about which of the 5 elements has the strongest ultimacy, I think it would be the earth element. Yixian frowned and thought for a moment. Besides the earth pulse, there was also force and gravity. These 2 powers Upanishads were easy to understand. The power Upanishad should be to increase the power, and the gravity should be to increase the gravity to slow down the opponent's speed. Yixian thought to himself. His speed was fast, so he was curious about the gravity Upanishad. If he could comprehend the gravity profound and reduce the opponent's speed, the opponent's strength would be greatly reduced. This was a divine skill. Most importantly, this was equivalent to a flight restriction formation which could force the other party onto the ground. I wonder when I can comprehend the profound of gravity. After pondering for a moment, Yixian closed his eyes. He wasn't cultivating, but he didn't want to answer other people's questions. After all, he had only comprehended the profound of gravity by chance. When the others saw him like this, they didn't ask any more questions. Yixian had just comprehended the pulsating guard, so he needed to carefully comprehend it and strike while the iron was hot. The Luosha region's domain master didn't say anything, but he was constantly looking around to see if anyone was following them. However, his worries were unnecessary. Jiang Tianjin did want to kill Yixian, but he changed his mind and left. Therefore, the journey was smooth and unhindered. 3 days later, the 9 firmament's great cloud Peng arrived at the Battle King Hall. We're finally here. The stone puppet, who had been cultivating the earth-splitting sword and battle dragon stomp for the past 3 days, stood up from the ground and looked at the huge, solemn palace in front of him. That's the Battle King Hall? Yixian opened his eyes and said slowly, This is the Battle King Hall, but it's just a branch hall. If you pass the test, you will be appointed as a guard in this branch hall. The Luosha region's domain master said. Just a branch hall? Yixian frowned. Don't worry, your aptitude is very good. As long as I report this matter, the branch hall will definitely send experts to escort you to the main hall. The Luosha region's domain master said. Yixian nodded slightly. The branch hall shouldn't be able to find anything, so he had to go to the main hall. At this time, the Luosha region's domain master suddenly said, However, I heard that a mysterious force has appeared recently, and they are constantly attacking the experts of the Battle King Hall. I want to warn you. Mysterious force? Yixian narrowed his eyes and 2 names flashed through his mind. Weapon King Hall. Beast King Hall. The Battle King Hall and the other 2 King Halls were the overlords of this region. However, if there was anyone who dared to provoke them, it would be the experts sent by these 2 forces. Murong Shui and the others also thought so. However, the Luosha region's domain master suddenly said, Don't think too much about it. Although the Seat Royal Hall is split into 3, they still cooperate with each other. This mysterious faction was not secretly formed by the other 2 Seat Royal Halls. If it's not the other 2 King Halls, then who is it? Yixian narrowed his eyes. At this time, the 9 Heavens Cloud Rock had already landed in front of the huge palace. Who are you? A man in silver armor walked forward quickly. I am the Luosha region's domain master. This is my proof of identity. The Luosha region's domain master jumped off the Nine Heavens cloud rock and handed over a token. The man in silver armor checked it, then took out a portrait from his interspatial ring and compared it. Okay, identity confirmed. You came this time to send off the geniuses? The man in silver armor looked at Yixian and the others. Yes, it's the 5 of them. The Luosha region's domain master nodded and secretly handed over an interspatial ring. He then pointed at Yixian and said, Sir, his name is Yixian. He has already comprehended ultimacy. The man in silver armor took the interspatial ring and quickly put it away. However, when he heard the Luosha region's domain master's words, he was so shocked that he almost dropped the interspatial ring in his hand. What? Ultimacy? The man in silver armor was stunned and looked at Yixian. Those who could comprehend ultimacy in the spirit stage were all geniuses that were 1 in a million. Although it was said that one could only break through to the nihility stage after comprehending ultimacy, most people would only begin to comprehend ultimacy after their attribute conversion reached 100. However, Yixian had only completed half of his attribute conversion. Is what you said true? The man in silver armor looked at the Luosha region's domain master. It's absolutely true. Yixian has an earth attribute spirit. He has already comprehended the earth throbbing pulse, and a branch of the earth throbbing pulse pulsatile guard. The Luosha region's domain master said seriously. What? He has even comprehended the pulsatile guard. The man in silver armor exclaimed and said, Boy, attack me and let me see. Yixian was stunned and immediately understood that the man in silver armor wanted to test him. Chapter 571. Translator. Nyobo Studio Editor. Nyobo Studio Deputy Palace Master. This man was a palace guard of Warlord Palace. His strength was on par with Tornado, at least 10 times stronger than Li Xiu. Yixian's earth-splitting sword was not enough to threaten him. Pung! Pung! 2 muffled sounds were heard. The earth-splitting sword was easily defeated by the silver-armored man. It is indeed the pulse of the earth, and it has evolved to the 2nd level. Genius, what a genius! The silver-armored man widened his eyes and threw out a flaming sword chi. This sword chi was very weak. It was only used for testing. Pung! Pung! The sword chi swept in front of Yixian and was dispersed by Yixian's pulsating guard. Good, this is great. Another genius who has comprehended ultimacy has come. Very good. The silver-armored man was very happy. However, his words revealed something else. Again, before Yixian, there was someone else who had comprehended ultimacy. A sub-palace is in charge of several regions. Each region is very large and full of talents. It is not a big deal to have another genius who has comprehended ultimacy. Yixian thought to himself. The Luosha region's region master was full of smiles. He had been on tenterhooks for the past 3 days. After all, he was afraid that Zhang Tianjin would suddenly attack and kill Yixian. Now he had finally delivered her to him. My lord, may I ask, how is Huang Tianyu, who I sent here 5 years ago? The Luosha region's region master suddenly asked. Huang Tianyu. The silver-armored man recalled and said, Not bad. He became a small captain and his attribute conversion has reached 90%. However, he has not comprehended ultimacy. Small captain? The Luosha region's region master paused. It seemed that this person was doing well. Alright, I will bring these 5 people in. Luosha region's region master, you can leave first. The silver-armored man said. Yes, my lord. The Luosha region's region master nodded slightly. Although he was stronger than the silver-armored man, the silver-armored man was a palace guard of Warlord Palace. He could only obediently call him lord. Domain lords were nothing in front of the Battle King Hall. After the 9 firmaments Cloud Peng took off, the Luosha domain ruler also returned to Luosha domain. Only after the 9 firmaments Cloud Peng disappeared did Yixian suddenly remember something. He had forgotten to ask the domain ruler to help inquire about Song Suijing and Adjudicator Song. Forget it. I'll come back after I settle down. Yixian shook his head helplessly. Although the palace guards had the word guard in their name, they were actually divided into 2 types. One type was responsible for guarding the palace, while the other type was allowed to go out and do missions. Of course, these 2 kinds of palace guards could apply to exchange positions. Alright, come in with me. The man in silver glanced at Murong Shui, then walked up to Yixian and asked, "Young man, what's your name?" "Yixian." Yixian replied. However, in the next instant, the silver-armored man began to crazily ask questions. He even said that he had a daughter and so on. Yixian was also speechless. He also knew that the silver-armored man was trying to get close to him, so he vaguely answered. Murong Shui and the other three were instantly left out. They didn't even ask for his name. However, this was understandable. After all, with so many domains, who wouldn't want to get close to a super genius like Yixian? "Brother Yi, the 5 of you can stay here for now. I'll report to the higher-ups." The silver-armored man led Yixian and the other 4 to a small residence in the palace. This palace was very big, but there was everything inside. Along the way, Yixian even saw some sacred beasts. At this time they were in a small palace, but this place didn't look like a palace corridor. There were mud, flowers, trees, and 5 mansions here. It was really a different world. This warlord palace is really amazing. The black dragon we saw just now wasn't a sacred beast, but a virtual god beast. After the silver-armored man left, Shao couldn't help but say, "Virtual god beast?" Hearing this, everyone, including Yixian, was stunned. Wasn't this the name of a creature that had surpassed a sacred beast? A virtual god beast could easily kill spirit realm trash like them. Yixian also didn't expect that the black dragon they saw just now was a virtual god beast comparable to a virtual god realm powerhouse. "Yixian, the experts of the Warlord Palace might be coming soon. Then you will be sent to the main palace. Congratulations." Shao walked over and cupped his fists. "Thank you." Yixian also cupped his fists. Shao was tall and sturdy, and he had a straightforward personality. He was worth making friends with. However, he would be leaving soon for the main palace of the Warlord Palace. If Shao and the other 3 passed the test, they would become palace guards of this palace. After that, they could choose to go out and carry out missions or guard the palace. Of course, the palace guards who went out to carry out missions had high risks, but the rewards were also high. Most of the time, the young ones would go out. The older ones would comprehend mysteries here. However, Yixian also wanted to participate in the palace guard test. Who knows, he might be able to increase his realm. His aptitude might be rare in the branch palace, but there might be many in the main palace. Moreover, the main palace was filled with virtual god realm powerhouses. The surroundings were probably very dangerous. His strength was too weak, so he might be slower if he went over. Soon after, the 5 of them were assigned to their respective residences. Not long after, the silver-armored man who had just left came back with a black-robed middle-aged man. The black-robed middle-aged man had a serious expression. He didn't look excited at all as he slowly walked in through the door. "Vice Palace Master, it's him." The silver-armored man pointed at Yixian. "Vice Palace Master?" Yixian and the other 4 were stunned. There were many virtual god realm powerhouses in the Warlord Palace's branch palace. Those who could become the Vice Palace Master were naturally virtual god realm powerhouses. At this moment, the middle-aged man was able to suppress his aura. Otherwise, Yixian and the other 4 would be so shocked that they couldn't move. "Oh? You're the one who comprehended the earth pulse and pulsating guard?" The middle-aged man's gaze landed on Yixian. "Yes, senior." Yixian nodded. "Attack me." The middle-aged man didn't beat around the bush and said directly. Seeing that the other party was so swift and decisive, Yixian didn't dare to dawdle. He immediately took out a supreme-grade heaven weapon and used the earth-splitting sword on the middle-aged man. Pung! Pung! The earth-splitting sword shook twice and then disappeared. It's indeed the earth pulse level 2. The middle-aged man squinted his eyes. Just like the silver-armored man, he casually threw out a streak of pure chi. Yixian was shocked. After all, the black-robed middle-aged man in front of him was a virtual god realm powerhouse. However, he didn't move and directly used the pulsating guard. Pung! Pung! This streak of pure chi was very weak. After being shaken twice by the pulsating guard, it dissipated. Chapter 572. Void Divine Weapon. Yixian's heart trembled when he heard this. He had been guessing whether the next level of the throbbing pulse of earth was the 3rd or 4th level. Now he finally understood that it was the 4th level. Then its power was indeed much stronger than the 2nd level. Your aptitude is very good. even better than Sun Xingyu's. It's just that your level is much lower. The middle-aged man said. However, rules are rules. Even if your aptitude is good, you still have to pass the Palace Guard assessment. Palace Guard assessment? Everyone present was stunned. Did a genius like Yixian need to take the assessment? Was this a joke? Vice Palace Master, this? The silver-armored man said in confusion. A sword's edge is sharpened. I'm sure you've experienced many life and death battles. Only under such circumstances can a true genius be born. The middle-aged man paused for a moment, then looked at Yixian and said, that Sun Xingyu has also comprehended the profound meaning. He also wants to participate in the Palace Guard examination. My warlord Hall wants a true genius, do you understand? His words were very provocative and no one could refute him. True geniuses rose up in the midst of difficulties. Most importantly, this was exactly what Yixian wanted. Understood. Yixian nodded solemnly. Good, then gather at the entrance in 3 days. The black-robed middle-aged man turned and left after he finished speaking. 3 days later, it would be the sub-palace's assessment. After the black-robed middle-aged man left, the silver-armored man sighed helplessly. Brother Yi, the vice-palace master is like this. He always says those words. Please don't be offended. Yixian did not agree. He also felt that a sword's edge was sharpened. He also felt that this saying was correct. As long as he participated in the assessment, he could continue to break through. Brother Chun, what is the content of the Palace Guard assessment this time? Yixian asked. The silver-armored man shook his head. I'm not sure. Only on the day of the assessment will the elders of the sub-palace come out and explain the content of the assessment. That Sun Xingyu, how strong is he? Yixian asked again. The stone puppets group of 4 also pricked up their ears, curious as to what attribute this genius called Sun Xingyu had and how high his realm was. This Sun Xingyu's attribute conversion has already reached 70%. His divine soul is of the metal attribute, and he has already comprehended the profound meaning of metal Midas touch. The silver-armored man replied, Metal attribute? Turning stone into gold? Yixian was stunned. He knew too little about elemental mysteries, so he couldn't help but ask, what's the effect of turning stone into gold? It seems that Brother Ye's understanding of profound meanings is very limited. The silver-armored man chuckled. You should know the characteristics of the metal element. Its attack power is the strongest of the 5 elements. And this metal elemental mystery is to allow his attacks to have the effect of assimilation. Assimilation? Yixian frowned. He did not understand what that meant. The silver-armored man explained, won't your earth element Zhenqi petrify your enemies after you injure them? This metal attribute's Midas touch is very similar to your petrification. You petrify, but it condenses into metal. It is extremely difficult to dissolve, and will also hinder the flow of Zhenqi. The longer the metal lasts, the harder it becomes. If it is not dissolved in time, a part of your body will be crippled. So that's how it is. Since I have earth element Zhenqi, if I am hit, I should be able to dissolve it better than other elements, right? Yixian asked again. Yes, that's why you can restrain that Sun Xingyu. However, your realm is too low. If you face him, I'm afraid it will be difficult for you to win. The silver-armored man shook his head helplessly. Yixian was good at everything, but his realm was too low. Does this Midas touch profundity only have an effect after injuring someone? At this time, the stone puppet behind Yixian suddenly asked. Yixian's eyes lit up when he heard this. He had actually forgotten this point. Yes, it only has an effect when you injure someone. Pure Zhenqi collision has no effect. The silver-armored man nodded. Yixian was still a little worried just now, but after hearing this he was not worried at all. This Midas touch profundity was actually a strengthened version of petrification. As long as he was not injured, this profundity would not be much of a threat to him. Moreover, he had the bloodline of the sacred tree of life. What was there to be afraid of? Big Brother Chun, I have one last question. Is there any way to get an ethereal divine weapon in the branch palace? Yixian paused for a while and could not help but ask. Ethereal divine weapon? The silver-armored man did not know why Yixian asked this. He thought for a while and said, ethereal divine weapons are actually not that precious. The ethereal divine realm elders in the branch palace have won. Ethereal divine weapons are different from heavenly weapons. Only ethereal god realm experts can fully utilize its value. Moreover, every ethereal divine weapon can grow. It needs to be nurtured by the ethereal god realm expert's elemental Zhanqi. The longer it is nurtured, the greater the amplification of the ethereal divine weapon. It needs to be nurtured? The 5 of them were shocked. This was the first time they had heard this, and their eyes lit up. Yixian frowned slightly because he had an ethereal divine weapon. However, he was not at the ethereal god realm but the spirit realm. Therefore, he could not nurture an ethereal divine weapon. An ethereal divine weapon is very expensive for a spirit realm expert, but it is nothing for an ethereal god realm expert. Moreover, an ethereal divine weapon will recognize its owner. Brother Yi, if you are at the ethereal god realm and you spend 10 years nurturing an ethereal divine weapon, then this ethereal divine weapon will increase your earth elemental attack power. If this ethereal divine weapon is taken away by someone else, then this ethereal divine weapon will be the same, as if it has never been nurtured. It will only be a normal ethereal divine weapon. This is the same as raising a child, it will recognize its owner. The silver-armored man continued. I see. Yixian squinted his eyes and said, if I obtain an ethereal divine weapon that has been nurtured by someone else, then I will have to nurture it with my Zhanqi again. That's right. After an ethereal god realm expert obtains an ethereal divine weapon, they will have to nurture it themselves. After all, a divine weapon that they have nurtured themselves is more convenient for them. Of course, there are also good and bad ethereal divine weapons. At this point, the silver-armored man could not help but ask, Brother Yi, do you have an ethereal divine weapon as well? Being asked this question, Yixian's heart trembled. He quickly shook his head and said, how is that possible? I am only at the spirit realm. How can I have an ethereal divine weapon? I am just curious. That's right. Although everyone has an ethereal divine weapon, it is not something that anyone can forge. Most of the ethereal divine weapons in the Warlord Hall are bought from the Weapon Lord Hall. The silver-armored man smiled. Yixian let out a dry laugh and did not say anything. His Bahuang sword was the weapon of the Bahuang sword god. It was an ethereal divine weapon. However, he had no idea what grade of ethereal divine weapon this Bahuang sword was. Was it the lower grade, the middle grade, the upper grade, or the supreme grade? Chapter 573. Translator, Transin Editor. Transin Palace Guard Assessment. Brother Yi, you can rest here for 3 days. The assessment will begin in 3 days. I will take my leave. The man in silver armor left. Yixian and the other 4 returned to their own courtyards to rest. What they didn't know was that the man in silver armor didn't return to the entrance. Instead, he went to look for the middle-aged man in black. Vice Palace Master. In a small courtyard, the man in silver armor knelt down on one knee. The Vice Palace Master turned around and said, you will lead them to the assessment in 3 days. Yes. The man in silver armor nodded. After a pause, he asked, when should I convert him? During the assessment. Test him first. As for the other 4, the little girl and the big guy are fine. You can do as you see fit. The Vice Palace Master said calmly. Then he took out 3 small red stones from his interspatial ring and said, these are 3 half-demon hearts. If you don't succeed, kill them. Yes, I will complete the mission. The silver-armored man nodded. A strange light flashed in his eyes as he put the 3 small stones into his universe ring and left. During these 3 days, Yixian stayed in his residence and practiced the Dragon War Stomp and the Earth-Shattering Sword. He wanted to see if he could raise the Earth Pulse to the 4th level. Unfortunately, the ultimacy wasn't a martial art. It wasn't that easy to raise the level. 3 days passed by quickly. On the morning of the 4th day, Yixian and the other 4 woke up and walked to the entrance of the palace hall. At this time, there were more than 100 people gathered at the entrance. There were 9 palace halls under Warlord Hall. Each palace hall was in charge of 12 regions. In total, there were 108 regions. Each region could have 5 domain lords. Some larger regions could have 7 or 8 domain lords. Therefore, there were more than 100 people in total. Luosha region was ranked 3rd among the 12 palace halls. At most, there were 6 domain lords. Yixian and the other 4 walked out and found an empty space to stand. They looked around. Those who had come to participate in the Warlord Hall's examination were all geniuses among geniuses. All of them had at least 50% attribute conversion. Yixian was the worst. However, he still had his power Upanishad. Among the dozens of people here, only Sun Xingyu could compare to him. He just didn't know who Sun Xingyu was. More and more people came out from the side hall, and soon, the number of people had exceeded 100. Not only that, but a group of palace guards also walked out from the side hall, including the silver-armored man who had received Yixian. "Hey brother Yi." The silver-armored man jogged towards Yixian. "Big brother Chen." Yixian hurriedly greeted him. The silver-armored man smiled and said, "The assessment mission is out. Furthermore, I will be the one leading the 5 of you to the assessment." As he spoke, he took out a parchment scroll from his interspatial ring. Yixian did not think too much about it and looked over curiously. Exterminate the Earth's core spider cave. Each person must exterminate 100 Earth's core spiders and bring back 100 Earth's core spider poison sacs. Time limit, 2 days. Shi Xiao could not help but read out the mission. Immediately, the 5 people had the same question. Were these Earth's core spiders strong? The silver-armored man read their doubts and explained with a smile. A single Earth's core spider can fight against a cultivator whose attribute conversion has reached 50%. Attribute conversion of 50%. Yixian paused for a moment. His attribute conversion was exactly 50%, Murong Shui's was 70%, Shi Zhao's was 65%, and the other 2 were both at 55%. Therefore, these Earth's core spiders were not a threat. However, this assessment mission required 100 Earth's core spider poison sacs, which meant that they would need at least 100 Earth's core spider corpses. There is a Earth's core spider cave to the west of the side hall. Our mission is to go there. At the same time, this mission can only be done alone. During the assessment period, non-assessors need to wait outside while I go in to evaluate, the silver-armored man said. The 5 people nodded. This was easy to understand. Compatibility was one point, but overall quality was still important. Strength alone was not enough to pass the assessment. All right, let's go. The silver-armored man did not waste any time. He put away the parchment and led Yixian's group to the west. There were many dangers in the vicinity of the Warlord Hall's side hall, but the experts of the Warlord Hall did not take action to give others a chance. The more dangerous a place was, the more opportunities there were, and the greater the improvement. If they died in there, they could only blame themselves for being too weak. The silver-armored man led Yixian's group and rushed for an entire day before stopping in front of a mountain. That cave is the Earth's core spider cave. Within 2 days, each of you has to kill 100 Earth's core spiders and bring out the corpses. The silver-armored man pointed at a pitch-black cave and said, "Understood." Yixian's group nodded. "All right, the 4 of you wait here first. Yixian, you go ahead with the assessment." After the silver-armored man finished speaking, he quickly descended to the ground. This Earth's core spider cave mission seemed to be only accepted by their team. The others had all gone to do other missions. Yixian did not mind and followed the silver-armored man. "Yixian, after you go down, it will depend on your own abilities. Even if your life is in danger, I will not interfere. This is the rule," the silver-armored man said to Yixian. "Understood." Yixian replied and directly rushed into the pitch-black cave. The silver-armored man followed behind him and opened up a distance of 1,000 meters. The cave was very dark, but after going down a certain distance, there was a sudden light. It turned out to be the light emitted by some heavenly treasures. Yixian quickly plucked these treasures and swallowed them. Although the Earth's core spider cave was strong, it was not to the point where he needed to use the 8 desolate sword. After entering the cave, Yixian did not even use the demon god transformation. He just held a supreme-grade celestial weapon and wandered around. SSSSSSSSS. When Yixian landed in the catacombs, he heard a slight sound. He felt it for a moment. Other than the silver-armored man behind him, there was also a huge creature lying on the stone wall. Yixian turned to look. Indeed, it was a spider. "Don't think that I can't see you just because you're hiding in the dark. Go to hell." Yixian immediately slashed with the earth-splitting sword and instantly killed the Earth's core spider cave. After that, he walked over and kept the Earth's core spider cave's corpse. 2 layers of the Earth's throbbing pulse. You're indeed powerful. You've comprehended the ultimacy at such a young age. If the transformation is successful, you'll definitely become a great general of the monster tribe of the Great Wilderness. The silver-armored man behind Yixian had a gleam in his eyes. At that moment, Yixian had already kept the Earth's core spider cave's corpse and continued to move forward. Chapter 574. Translator. Hinyi Translations Editor. Hinyi Translations Complete. The assessment mission was to kill 100 geocentric spiders in 2 days. This mission was considered easy for Yixian. After all, his sacred tree of life bloodline was 10 times or even 100 times faster than a wood attribute spirit. He did not need 2 days at all. Yixian went deeper into the catacombs and encountered many scattered geocentric spiders. These geocentric spiders were all easily killed by him. 7, 8, 9. Soon, the number of geocentric spiders in Yixian's devouring space had reached 10. It had only been 10 minutes since he entered the catacombs. If Lin Feng and Wang En had entered, they would have used up all their true qi and needed to recover. A red geocentric spider? A ball of fiery red color suddenly appeared in Yixian's line of sight. He turned around and saw a spider dragging a flame as it ran towards him. This flaming spider was much stronger than a normal geocentric spider. It could probably fight a martial artist with 60% attribute conversion. Unfortunately, Yixian was even able to kill Li Xiu, who'd achieved 70% of his attribute conversion. Demon God Transformation Die. Yixian immediately used his trump card and killed the flaming spider in an instant. Then he walked over to the flaming spider and said, "Big Brother Chan, how many can this spider count as?" "It can only count as 1, said the silver-armored man behind him. Since that was the case, Yixian put away the corpse of the flaming spider and devoured it. His strength increased by a lot. "This kid, I didn't expect him to be so strong. I thought he would need more time to deal with the flaming spider," thought the silver-armored man. Of course, with his realm he could easily kill the flaming spider. Yixian continued to go deeper into the catacombs. The strong fighters of Warlord Hall had explored this catacombs before. There was a geocentric spider king here. Its strength was comparable to an expert with 75% attribute conversion. However, this geocentric spider king lived at the bottom tens of thousands of meters above ground. At this time, Yixian was already deep into the catacombs. He would start to encounter groups of geocentric spiders here. 13. Kill. Without another word, Yixian charged forward. By the time he reached the group of geocentric spiders, only 3 of the 13 geocentric spiders remained. He quickly slashed out 3 slashes, killing the 3 earth core spiders. "Yes, it's over 30. Give me a few more hours and I'll be able to complete the mission." Yixian was very satisfied. However, this assessment task was 2 days for each person. He only spent a few hours to complete the task, which was too wasteful. Therefore, he was thinking that after completing the mission, he would stay in the Earth's core spider cave and increase his strength. 40, 50, 60, 70. Yixian's killing speed was very fast. In less than 2 hours, he had killed 70 geocentric spiders. There were only 30 left before the mission was completed. But at this moment, rumble. Suddenly, a loud noise rang out in the lair. Yixian frowned. Sensing the commotion, it seemed that a large group of spiders was approaching. The silver-armored man also took out a supreme-grade heaven artifact. Although he said that he could not attack, it was just a casual remark. The Vice Palace Master thought highly of Yixian. If he allowed Yixian to make any mistakes, he would definitely die a horrible death. "They're here." Yixian's eyes lit up. He turned his head and saw geocentric spiders rushing out from the end of a fork in the tunnel. Sort of earth-splitting. Battle Dragons 10 steps. Pulse of the Earth second layer. He began to attack wildly. These geocentric spiders were on par with him. Even if he did not use the Pulse of the Earth, he could block the entrance of the cave with the Demon God transformation and not let the geocentric spiders rush out. He estimated that after this, he would meet the requirements of the assessment task. 96, 97, 98, 99. Yixian attacked as he counted. Soon the number reached 100. As long as he collected these geocentric spiders, he would have completed the assessment. At that time, he would be able to join the Warlord Palace and become a palace guard that even the domain leader would have to show respect to. However, since these geocentric spiders were rushing out endlessly, he was not in a hurry. He killed everyone that came out. He stood there like this for a minute. 363. Holy shit, why are there so many geocentric spiders? Yi Xian was shocked. With so many geocentric spiders, if it were anyone else such as Murong Shui, they would have turned pale with fright. 363 geocentric spiders was a large number. Although they were not strong individually, how could ordinary people have such terrifying recovery speed like Yi Xian? What is this kid's background? Why is his Zhanqi endless? The silver-armored man was very surprised. At this time, an even larger figure appeared at the end of the tunnel. Not good. It's the geocentric Spider King. The silver-armored man's expression changed. The geocentric Spider King could fight a martial artist with 75% attribute conversion. Yi Xian's attribute conversion was only 50%. Could he win by relying on his profound? The silver-armored man could not estimate, but he did not make a move. Instead, he watched quietly. So it's boss. Good. I'll turn it into my experience. Yi Xian's eyes flashed. He had even killed Li Xiu with 70% attribute conversion. What was there to be afraid of against a mere sacred beast? One had to know that almost all humans could challenge sacred beasts above their level. Sword of the Earth splitting. Battle Dragon's 10 steps. Pulse of the Earth second layer. Before the geocentric Spider King appeared, the normal geocentric spiders were all dead. Then the geocentric Spider King rushed out from the pile of corpses. A boss battle. But to the silver-armored man's surprise, Yi Xian did not start a fight with the geocentric Spider King. Instead, he passed by it and started to quickly collect the geocentric Spider King's corpses. This brat is still collecting things at such a crucial time. Is he planning to run away after collecting them? The silver-armored man thought to himself. He saw that Yi Xian was faster than the geocentric Spider King, so he was not worried. In a short while, Yi Xian collected all 300 geocentric Spider King's corpses. He kept 100 of them and then devoured the rest. Ding! Host's Earth attribute conversion has increased to 53 points. More than 300 sacred beast corpses and sacred beast souls caused Yi Xian's stats to increase by 3 levels. Awesome! Big guy, go to hell! Yi Xian roared and suddenly attacked. The geocentric Spider King's carapace was considered tough. This geocentric Spider King was relatively strong and difficult to deal with. Although the carapace was tough, Yi Xian's Pulse of the Earth loved things with strong defenses. In less than half a minute, the geocentric Spider King fell. Chapter 575. Half-demon so weak. Even Li Xiu could easily kill it. How boring. Yi Xian shook his head and kept the Earth Core Spider King's corpse before devouring it. Ding! Host's Earth attribute conversion has increased to 55 points. This Earth Core Spider King gave Yi Xian a large amount of experience and allowed him to break through twice. Then he turned around and said to the astonished silver-armored man, "Big brother Chun, I've completed my mission." The silver-armored man came back to his senses and smiled. "Not bad. You've greatly exceeded the mission requirements. I've also observed you along the way and the overall evaluation is pretty good. However, this evaluation is still half complete." "What else?" Yi Xian asked subconsciously. "This is the Palace Guard's assessment mission. There's a hidden assessment that I can only tell you now." The silver-armored man gripped the long sword in his hand and said, "This hidden assessment is to fight with me. I need to know your true combat strength." Hidden assessment? Yi Xian did not doubt him and said in shock, "But Big Brother Chan, you've already converted 80% of your attributes. That's enough to kill me." "That's right, but we still have to fight. Don't worry, I'll only defend and not attack." The silver-armored man nodded. "Oh, if that's the case, then I won't hold back." Yi Xian's eyes flashed. He had never fought with an expert who had converted 80% of his attributes. He wanted to see if he could threaten his opponent without using the Bahuang sword. "Come." The silver-armored man gripped his long sword and said, "Bang!" Just as he finished speaking, Yi Xian's figure flashed and raised his foot to use the War Dragon's 10 steps. which contained the earth pulse. However, the silver-armored man had been following him for so long. How could he be hit by this move? The silver-armored man's feet had long left the ground, so the war dragon's 10 steps were useless against him. This was also within Yi Xian's expectations. He began to slash rapidly with his right hand, and the earth splitter continuously attacked the silver-armored man. Some of these earth-shattering swords directly pierced through the air, while others drilled into the ground and swept past the silver-armored man. The silver-armored man stood in midair, brandishing his long sword and instantly destroying the swords in front of him. As for the earth-shattering swords, they were all destroyed by his left hand. Only then did Yi Xian realize that the silver-armored man's true qi was of the fire attribute, which perfectly countered his earth attribute. This is a hidden part of the assessment. If you get a high evaluation, you might get a reward. Yi Xian thought to himself as he attacked. However, what he didn't know was that the hidden test was actually made up by the silver-armored man on the spot. The silver-armored man had an ulterior motive. Boom! 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 A series of muffled sounds rang out as Yi Xian's attacks were all defeated by the silver-armored man. If they were to continue fighting, the winner would definitely be Yi Xian. After all, he had an endless supply of elemental qi. Even if the silver-armored man had converted 80% of his elemental qi, it was impossible for him to not use it up. Of course, this was if the silver-armored man didn't attack him. Yi Xian, why do you have so much true qi? Finally, the silver-armored man couldn't help but ask. Haha, big brother Chun, that's not very kind of you. This is my secret. Yi Xian wouldn't tell him that he had the bloodline of the sacred tree of life. Alright. The silver-armored man didn't think much of it. At this moment, he suddenly put away the long sword in his hand. Next, he faced the earth-shattering swords with his fists. Moreover, he used one punch to destroy the earth-shattering swords. Boom! 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 What a fist technique! Yi Xian was shocked. Yi Xian more ferocious. The silver-armored man shouted. Yi Xian's eyes flashed as he attacked with all his might. His attribute conversion had already reached 55%. Even if Li Xiu was still alive, he wouldn't be able to withstand his attacks. However, in the silver-armored man's eyes, these attacks couldn't even withstand a single blow. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly realized something. He realized that the silver-armored man didn't seem to be using true qi. Instead, he used his bare hands to destroy the earth-shattering swords. How was this possible? One had to know that after the spirit realm, a martial artist's physique didn't increase by much after breaking through. However, the silver-armored man didn't even use true qi. He used only his fists to destroy the earth-shattering swords. This made him feel incredulous. He stopped and asked in shock, Big brother Chun, how is your physique so strong? The silver-armored man smiled and said, This is also my secret. Alright, the test is over. You passed. Passed. When this word fell into Yi Xian's ears, he couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. Did this mean that he had joined the warlord palace? Thank you, big brother Chun. Yi Xian smiled and said, Let's go out. Don't rush. The silver-armored man called out to Yi Xian and said, I still have some things to tell you. What? Yi Xian stopped in his tracks and quietly looked at the silver-armored man. He didn't know why, but he had a strange feeling in his heart. Just now, you asked me why my physique is so strong. I can tell you this secret, but it's up to you if you want to know. The silver-armored man slowly said, Secret? Want to know? These two words caused Yi Xian to be at a loss. This was the silver-armored man's secret. If he wanted to tell him, he would tell him. What did he mean by it's up to you if you want to know? If Big Brother Chen is willing to share, then I am willing to listen. Yi Xian nodded. Alright, then I'll tell you. After the silver-armored man said this, he suddenly asked, Yi Xian, have you heard of the Yao clan? Yao clan? Hearing this, Yi Xian was stunned. He had heard of the human clan and the sea clan, but he had never heard of the Yao clan. Thus, he subconsciously shook his head. In this world, there are actually many races such as the human clan, the sea clan, and the demon clan. The Yao clan is also a race of this world. Since you have never heard of the Yao clan, then you should have never seen one. You can think of the Yao clan as a race of sacred beasts that can transform into human form. The silver-armored man explained. Hearing this, Yixian couldn't help but think of a few people, namely the Flood Dragon clan in the Deep Sea Palace. Yu Man, and the others all had the ability to transform due to their ancestors consuming a transformation grass. Then were they the Sea clan or the Yao clan? However, this wasn't important. The important thing was, why did the silver-armored man tell him this? Could it be Big Brother Chen Yu? Yixian's mind flashed as he asked in shock. Chapter 576. There was no effect. Not a human? A half-fiend? Yixian squinted his eyes. He started to doubt his own eyes. This silver-armored man clearly looked like a human. How could he be a half-fiend? Yixian, the reason why my physique is much stronger than normal people is because of this half-fiend heart. Now let me ask you, do you want to be like me? The silver-armored man asked with squinted eyes. This was his goal today. Like you. Yixian paused and frowned. He subconsciously asked, what are the requirements to become a half-fiend? There are no requirements. As long as you consume this half-fiend heart, then half of your heart will become a half-fiend heart. At that time you will also possess a physique like mine. When that time comes, you will be able to challenge people of a higher rank than you. You will become the #1 genius of the Warlord Palace. The silver-armored man said. The #1 genius of the Warlord Palace. What a joke. Although Yixian wasn't very smart, he wasn't stupid either. Jiang Tianjin wasn't much older than him, but he had already broken through to the Nihility God realm. Even if his physique was strengthened, he wouldn't be able to break through to the Nihility God realm so quickly. The silver-armored man's words were just to test him. Do the palace masters know that you're a half-fiend? Yixian squinted his eyes and asked. The silver-armored man was stunned. He then shook his head and said, they don't know. That's why I'm very careful. This is because humans and fiends are mortal enemies. If humans discover us, we will definitely be besieged. Mortal enemies? Yixian's heart trembled. If that was the case, why did the silver-armored man dare to tell him? Suddenly, he thought of many possibilities and immediately asked, then Brother Chan, why do you want me to become a half-fiend? Because I admire you. You are the most talented person I have ever seen. This half-fiend heart was refined from the heart of a heavenly dragon that was at the peak of the spirit realm. Its amplification is much stronger than my half-fiend heart. If you swallow it, you'll have the ability to fight against me. When the time comes, I'll teach you a concealment martial art. Even a Nihility God realm master won't be able to discover us. The silver-armored man extended his hand and showed the red stone to Yixian. To be honest, Yixian was initially tempted. However, when the silver-armored man mentioned that humans and half-demons were mortal enemies, he made up his mind. What a joke! If he became a half-demon, how would he face his family and friends in the future? Therefore, it was impossible for him to agree. Big Brother Chan, if I don't agree, will you kill me? Yixian asked with narrowed eyes. Yes, because this is my secret. If you are still alive, you will definitely reveal my secret. Only the dead can keep a secret. The silver-armored man nodded. Now that he had said his piece, it was up to Yixian to decide. Yixian had already guessed his words. If Yixian refused, the silver-armored man would definitely explode and kill him. Furthermore, this was the Earth Core Spider's nest. Even if Yixian died, he would have plenty of excuses. Yixian pondered for a moment and said, how many half-demons are there in the Warlord Hall's branch palace? Just me and my captain. The silver-armored man said. On the way to the Earth Core Spider's nest, Yixian had asked the silver-armored man about a lot of things. In the Warlord Hall's branch palace, the captain's attribute conversion had reached at least 90%, while the captain was at the peak of the spirit realm. There were only 2 half-demons in the Warlord Hall. If the captain that the silver-armored man spoke of could refine a spirit realm peak half-demon's heart, why didn't he give it to the silver-armored man first? Yixian's intuition told him that this was a lie. However, he wouldn't be so stupid to refuse. Okay, Big Brother Chen. I agree. Yixian nodded. Great. Yixian, this half-demon's heart that was refined from a spirit realm peak sky dragon's heart is yours. The silver-armored man grinned without any suspicion. This was because Yixian didn't need to play any tricks. After all, his strength was there. Even if Yixian consumed the half-demon's heart and became stronger, Yixian would already be a half-demon by then. they would be the same as him. Yi Xian received the half-demon's heart and put it into his mouth under the silver-armored man's gaze. However, he did not swallow it. Instead, he quietly put it into his devour space. He made a swallowing action and asked, "Big Brother Chan, when will this half-demon's heart take effect?" "Very soon. You might feel a heart-wrenching pain. You must endure it. The longer you endure, the stronger your half-demon's heart will become," the silver-armored man solemnly reminded. "Oh." Yi Xian nodded slightly. However, he waited for a while, but there was no reaction. Of course there was no reaction. After all, the half-demon's heart had been put into his devour space. "Yi Xian, how do you feel?" the silver-armored man asked curiously when he saw Yi Xian's calm expression. Logically speaking, the half-demon's heart should have begun to take effect. However, why didn't Yi Xian have any reaction? "Big Brother Chun, there's no effect," Yi Xian said pretentiously. "Impossible. Could it be that the half-demon's heart was not refined successfully? Wait for a while and see." The silver-armored man frowned. They waited for a while. Including the previous time, it had been a full 5 minutes. "Big Brother Chun, there's still no effect." Yi Xian shook his head. "That's strange. Could it be that there's a problem with the half-demon's heart that the Vice Palace Master gave?" the silver-armored man thought. He waited for a while, but there was still no reaction from Yi Xian. It was impossible for Yi Xian to be pretending. After all, he had experienced that kind of heart-wrenching pain. Yi Xian could not remain indifferent. Therefore, there must be a problem with the half-demon's heart. "Yi Xian, try eating this one." The silver-armored man took out another one. This one was originally prepared for Murong Shui. This half-demon's heart was also refined from the heavenly dragon's heart. However, this heavenly dragon isn't at the peak of the spirit stage. It's a bit lacking. The silver-armored man tossed the half-demon's heart to Yi Xian. Yi Xian caught it and put it into his mouth in front of the silver-armored man. This time, the silver-armored man stared at Yi Xian. He could feel that the spiritual energy of the half-demon's heart had disappeared. This meant that it had been swallowed by Yi Xian. However, the strange thing was that Yi Xian still did not have any reaction after eating the half-demon's heart. "What the F***ck? What's going on? 2 half-demon's hearts have no effect?" the silver-armored man roared in his heart. Chapter 577. Demonization. "Brother Chan, did your half-demon's heart change?" Yi Xian asked. "Change? What kind of joke is this? I don't believe it." The silver-armored man descended from the sky and walked in front of Yi Xian. He handed over the last half-demon's heart and said, "This is the last one." To be honest, if this half-demon's heart still had no effect, he could only knock Yi Xian unconscious and report to the deputy palace master of the Warlord Palace. After all, Yi Xian already knew his secret and could not return to the Warlord Palace with him. Yi Xian took the last half-demon's heart and swallowed it. The silver-armored man was 1 meter away from Yi Xian. He could clearly feel that the half-demon's heart's aura was disappearing. "Let's see how much of a breakthrough these 3 half-demon's hearts can give me." With a thought, Yi Xian directly devoured the 3 half-demon's hearts in the devour space. Of course, this was a normal devour, not a special devour. Ding! The host's Earth attribute conversion has increased to 60 points. The system prompted. Before Yi Xian consumed the half-demon's heart, it was 55 points, which meant that it was 55%. But now, it had suddenly increased to 60 points, which meant that it was 60%. Although these 3 half-demon's hearts were precious, they were only refined from the hearts of saint beasts at the peak of the spirit stage. Therefore, their value was not high. If it were 3 void god beasts' hearts, then Yi Xian would probably be able to increase it by 10 points. Yi Xian was already very satisfied with this. The silver-armored man standing in front of Yi Xian was startled. He felt that Yi Xian's aura had suddenly increased. He asked in surprise, "Yi Xian, how do you feel?" "However, I've broken through." Yi Xian's mouth slightly curled up. "Breakthrough?" The silver-armored man did not understand. The half-demon's heart would only greatly increase the physique. How could it help Yi Xian break through? However, in the next moment, he felt an extremely strong murderous intent and immediately retreated. "Yi Xian, you." The silver-armored man looked at Yi Xian in fear. Big Brother Chun. Thank you for the 3 half-demon hearts. Yixian grinned. What do you mean? The silver-armored man narrowed his eyes. Big Brother Chun. I've already refined your 3 half-demon hearts. However, my heart is still a human heart. I am still a human, not a half-fiend. Yixian replied with a smile. This is impossible. The silver-armored man frowned. I don't care if you believe me or not. In any case, I am a human. I used my special method to refine those 3 half-demon hearts. Yixian stretched his body because he knew that there would be a battle coming up. Actually, he could have launched a sneak attack and killed the silver-armored man earlier. However, he did not because he wanted to see how strong this half-demon's physique was. So you're saying that you were fooling me? The silver-armored man finally reacted. That's right. Yixian nodded. In this world, if you did not trick others, others would trick you. If he was a weakling who could be easily crushed by the silver-armored man, would the silver-armored man let him go if he refused? Of course not. I never thought that I would be fooled by you. I admire you and want to make you stronger, but you don't cherish it. Fine, now let me send you on your way. The silver-armored man suddenly took out a supreme-grade celestial artifact. It's not certain who will send who off. Yixian's eyes flashed and he gripped the longsword in his hand tightly. A demon god's shadow condensed behind him. In the next moment, the demon god's shadow merged into his body. The silver-armored man's attribute conversion had reached 80% and he had a half-demon body. His strength had already surpassed the Tornado General under the command of the Luosha region's domain master. However, Yixian was no longer the same as before. His attribute conversion had broken through 60% and he had the 2 profound meanings of Earth Pulse and Pulsating Guard. Even if he did not use the 8 Desolate Sword, he was not afraid of his opponent. Kill! At this time, the 2 of them shouted in their hearts at the same time, and their figures quickly dodged. Sword of Earth Splitting. Earth Pulse. Yixian attacked with all his might. The silver-armored man kept swinging his long sword and streaks of flaming sword chi swept towards Yixian. Like Li Xiu, who was killed by Yixian, he had fire attribute vital energy. Therefore, he was more effective against Yixian. In addition to his half-demon body, his strength was above Yixian's. However, Yixian was able to kill Li Xiu with an attribute conversion that surpassed 20%. Today he was only slightly more than 20. He might be able to fight him. Boom! 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 The 2 of them had just started and were already using all their skills to kill each other. Yixian was at a disadvantage in terms of realm and attribute, but his speed was not slower than the silver-armored man. Therefore, the 2 of them were in a stalemate. This kid, his attribute conversion was only 50% before. How did he suddenly increase it to 60%? The silver-armored man was very surprised. He thought that Yixian must have an extremely strong aura concealment technique that could conceal his aura and strength. However, he did not know that Yixian had just broken through. Moreover, it was all thanks to his 3 half-demon hearts. Big Brother Chun, you're a little weak. Is this all you've got? Yixian mocked as he dodged. Kid, don't be so arrogant. The silver-armored man roared. He knew that he would either succeed or die trying this time. If he did not kill Yixian, Yixian would definitely announce this matter. When that happened, things would be bad. Therefore, even if he had to risk his life, he had to kill Yixian. Unfortunately, his current realm was not enough. The 2 of them exchanged more than 30 rounds, but neither of them could do anything to the other. However, compared to the beginning, Yixian had the upper hand. The bloodline of the sacred tree of life. Endless elemental qi. This was an advantage. The half-demon heart is not bad, but I, Yixian, am not blindly chasing after power. Since humans and demons are mortal enemies, I will enforce justice on behalf of the heavens and kill you today. Yixian roared. Cut the crap. You're courting death. The silver-armored man also shouted. However, he felt an immense pressure. This pressure came from Yixian. Ever since Yixian entered the geocentric spider's lair, he had not stopped to rest. Before the geocentric spider king came out, Yixian had killed more than 300 geocentric spiders using earth elemental qi. He could not understand why Yixian's qi was so different from his realm. Yixian's elemental qi had probably surpassed his own. If this continued, He would be the one to lose when his elemental chi ran out. Demonification. At this moment, the silver-armored man suddenly roared at the sky. His entire appearance began to change. This is Chapter 578. Translator, Transin Editor, Transendai. Yixian watched as the silver-armored man's hands turned into claws, horns grew from his head, and a slender tail grew out. However, he had seen this kind of tail before, and it wasn't just once. Sky Dragon. This silver-armored man's half-demon heart was refined from the heart of a sky dragon. So after demonification, he looked a little like a sky dragon. Brat, I'm going to kill you. The silver-armored man transformed into a half-human, half-dragon form. After a loud shout, he threw away the long sword in his hand and pounced at Yixian. This time Yixian didn't dare to hold back anymore. Bahuang's sword. Yixian unhesitatingly took out the Bahuang sword, but it immediately shattered. Bahuang wind formation. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Numerous sharp blades flew towards the demonified silver-armored man. Yixian had already comprehended the throbbing pulse of the earth, so he could fuse it with any attack. This Bahuang wind formation could do the same. What? The silver-armored man was stunned. Seeing the 8 sharp blades flying towards him, he stretched out his claws and tried to grab them, but they were fiercely repelled. Ethereal Divine Weapon. This is an ethereal divine weapon. The silver-armored man immediately recognized it. He finally understood why Yixian had asked him about the ethereal divine weapon in detail. It turned out that Yixian really did have an ethereal divine weapon. This was going to be troublesome. Big Brother Chun, I'm sorry. I was very willing to befriend you, but who knew that you would be so greedy as to target me? So please die. Yixian's eyes widened. He controlled the 8 sharp blades and attacked with the sword of the earth shattering. At this moment, the silver-armored man's feet landed on the ground. After all, if one's body was strong, it would be faster to run on his feet. It was much faster than flying. This also gave Yixian a chance. Battle Dragon's 10 steps. Throbbing pulse of the earth. 2 layers. Boom, boom, boom. Under the 3-pronged attack, the silver-armored man couldn't release his hands and was forced into a passive state. The silver-armored man's half-dragon face was already ashen as if he had eaten poison. He didn't expect that he would end up like this. Now he couldn't hold on much longer. Yixian, I admit defeat. The silver-armored man finally said. Admit defeat? Admit defeat? Yixian almost laughed out loud. In a battle of life and death, there was still someone who would admit defeat. Editors Lucas. Big Brother Chun, let me send you to heaven. Yixian didn't Yixian. Bahuang wind formation. Sword of the earth shattering step. Battle Dragon's 10 steps. Transin Xian Dragon Island move run divine Xian ice steps. MNN Transin technique. Under the 3-pronged attack, wounds began to appear on the silver-armored man's body. These wounds were all caused by the earth elemental true energy, which could obstruct the flow of his true energy. Although his true chi was of the fire attribute, he didn't have the time to dispel the stones on his body in the face of such a difficult joint attack. Finally, in the 105th round of the battle, bang! Yixian's sword of the earth suddenly swept past the silver-armored man's thigh and cut it off. The wound was instantly petrified and then exploded. Losing a leg, he couldn't fight anymore. He hurriedly begged for mercy. Yixian, spare my life. When these words entered Yixian's ears, he was unable to convince him. Die! Yixian swept his sword and instantly cut off the silver-armored man's head. Die! Yixian only knew that his surname was Chun. He didn't even know his name. Although the silver-armored man had family, did Yixian not have family? Natural selection. The weak were always eliminated first. Since he dared to target Yixian, he should be prepared to be killed. After the silver-armored man died, he regained his original appearance. Yixian walked over and collected the man's interspatial ring along with the corpse. Ding! The host's earth attribute conversion has increased. It is currently at 62 points. The silver-armored man was a guard of the Warlord Hall's branch. He was very strong and very wealthy. However, Yixian's current level wasn't low, so it only increased Yixian's level by 2. Still, this was pretty good. After all, when he entered the underground spider's lair, His attribute conversion had only increased by 50%. I didn't expect him to be a half-demon. Although he's not a true demon, he's still a mortal enemy of humans. How dare he try to recruit me? What kind of joke is this? Yi Xian snorted inwardly. The silver-armored man was already dead. However, he was the examiner for this trial. Who would take over if he died? Looks like I have to find a reason to shove him in. Yi Xian narrowed his eyes. This wasn't the main point. The main point was that there were definitely other half-demons in the Warlord Hall. There might even be demons in human form. However, most of the people in the Warlord Hall were humans. It was impossible for half-demons to infiltrate too many of them. Therefore, Yi Xian had to return to the Warlord Hall. Let's get out of here first. Yi Xian calmed down and cleaned up the scene. Then he rushed to the surface. Before long, he was back on the surface. Yi Xian, why did you come out? Shi Xiao, who was hovering above the underground spider's lair, couldn't help but ask when he saw Yi Xian fly out. I was in the middle of killing when Big Brother Chun suddenly asked me to come out. I don't know why, Yi Xian replied casually. Shi Xiao immediately understood. He probably saw some treasure on the way, so he stopped the trial. Murong Shui and the others nodded. They all understood. Therefore, Yi Xian stayed with them for a whole day. That's strange. Didn't they say that the underground spiders weren't strong? Big Brother Chun should have come out in a day. Shi Xiao frowned. This wasn't the first time he asked this question. There's a Spider King in the underground spider's lair. Could it be that Big Brother Chun went to kill it to be safe for us? It's also possible that he was surrounded by a large number of spiders. Big Brother Chun's attribute conversion has reached 80%. How could there be an accident? Shi Xiao and the other two people were still discussing. Murong Shui stood quietly to the side, not saying anything. Only Yi Xian knew the reason. The silver-armored man was killed by him, so he couldn't come out. The corpse was still in his devouring space. If he really came out, Yi Xian would probably be scared to death. At the same time, the silver-armored man had prepared 3 half-demon hearts, so Yi Xian guessed that Murong Shui and Shi Xiao were also on his list. By killing the silver-armored man, Yi Xian indirectly saved Murong Shui and Shi Xiao. Wait, when it's about time, the 5 of us will go back. Then we'll get a new palace guard to take the trial. This was Yi Xian's plan. Chapter 579. Reassessment. Very quickly another day passed. Shi Xiao and the others had been waiting for the man in silver armor for a long time. Yi Xian, what should we do now? Asked Shi Xiao, frowning. It seems like Brother Chun had an accident. Should we go back and report this to the higher-ups? Said Lin Feng before Yi Xian could say anything. Agreed. Brother Chun is our examiner. If he has an accident, we can't take the exam anymore. Let's go back, said Wang En, nodding. Shi Xiao turned to Murong Shui and said, Miss Murong, what do you think? All right, said Murong Shui, nodding. I don't mind either, replied Yi Xian. He wanted to go back anyway. All right, let's go back. Something must have happened in the underground spider nest. We should report this to the higher-ups and then reassess, said Shi Xiao, flying back in the direction they had come from. When they had arrived, the man in silver armor had taken them a day. When they went back, it still took them a day. When the 5 of them arrived at the Champion Palace, they were noticed by a guard at the entrance. What are you doing here? Asked the guard, who was also wearing silver armor. Big Brother, we are participating in the palace guard assessment this time. However, an accident happened to the palace guard in charge of the assessment and we were unable to come out of the Saint Beast lair, so we came back to report. Yi Xian landed on the ground and cupped his fists. What? The examiner had an accident? Where did you take the exam? Asked the guard, frowning. The underground spider nest on the west side of the palace, replied Yi Xian. The guard took out a scroll from his ring of cosmos and glanced at it. Chun Liang is in charge of the underground spider nest. When he saw the name of the examiner, his eyes lit up. You're Yi Xian. That's me, said Yi Xian, nodding. He wasn't surprised. Among the 100 geniuses who had taken the exam, only he and Sun Xingyu had understood abstruse energies. The guard would definitely recognize him. Tell me what happened in detail, the silver-armored palace guard said. Following that, Yi Xian told him the story he made up. It was just that when he was in the middle of killing, the silver-armored man suddenly called out to him and asked him to leave first. However, the silver-armored man never returned. That's strange. We've already explored that geocentric spider lair, and there's only a 75% geocentric spider king. Could it have encountered a large number of spiders and been surrounded and killed? The silver-armored palace guard narrowed his eyes and said, "Wait here, I'll report to the captain." After he finished speaking, he turned around and entered the side hall while Yi Xian and the other four waited there. Not long after, he walked out with a young man in golden armor. The young man in golden armor had already heard of what had happened. He walked out and looked at Yi Xian. "Now I will lead all of you to the trial. The location of the trial will not change. It will still be the Earth Core spider lair." "Yes." Yi Xian and the others nodded. The golden-armored young man immediately led the five of them away. Along the way, the young man in golden armor could not help but ask, "Are the five of you from the Luosha region?" "Yes. My name is Huang Tianyu. I came here 5 years ago through the region lord. You might have heard of me," the young man in golden armor said. "Huang Tianyu?" Yi Xian and the others were stunned. They did not expect to meet a senior here. "Although we came from the same place, don't think that I will help you. I will follow the rules of the trial." After the young man in golden armor finished speaking, he did not say anything else and continued on his way. One day later, Yi Xian and the other four returned to the Earth Core spider lair. There are 100 poison sacs in the Earth Core spider lair. The time limit is 2 days. "Yi Xian, you go first," Huang Tianyu said. Yi Xian nodded silently as he carefully guarded against Huang Tianyu. However, when he flew to the entrance of the Earth Core spider lair, he realized that Huang Tianyu did not follow him. Huang Tianyu had joined the Warlord Hall 5 years ago, and his attribute conversion had already reached 90%. He was much stronger than the silver-armored man. If he had followed, Yi Xian might have been in danger. However, since he did not follow, Yi Xian was not worried. Moreover, this indirectly proved that Huang Tianyu was not a half-demon. Of course, this was only a possibility. Yi Xian re-entered the Earth Core spider lair. He estimated that he would be able to flip the entire lair in 2 days. He had wanted to find a chance to clear out this lair. Now he had a chance. 2 days. Kill. Yi Xian's eyes flashed as he began a frenzied slaughter. Previously, he could even kill the Earth Core Spider King. After breaking through, this Earth Core spider lair was no longer a threat to him. Therefore, he turned the entire lair upside down and took away all the treasures. Of course, he did not go too far. He left behind many Earth Core spiders. After a day and a half, Yi Xian finally came out. His attribute conversion had reached 63 points. Although it was only 1 point, breaking through in less than 2 days was very fast for him. "Yi Xian, you're really amazing. You actually still have the energy to look for treasures." Shi Xiao could not help but say. Yi Xian smiled awkwardly. At this time, Huang Tianyu snorted coldly. "Stop talking nonsense." Next, he had a bad temper. Yi Xian had already completed the test, but he had not come out yet. How dare he make him wait outside? If Yi Xian had not understood the abstruse meaning, he would have flipped out on the spot. Before Yi Xian had entered, the order had already been set. Murong Shui was next. After hearing Huang Tianyu's words, she had jumped into the Earth Core spider lair. Her attribute conversion had reached 70%. Killing these Earth Core spiders would only take 1 strike. Therefore, she came out in a few hours. Next was Shi Xiao. He was not bad. He came out in half a day. The next one was Lin Feng. Lin Feng and Wang En's attribute conversion had reached 55%. Although it was higher than the Earth Core spiders, they needed time to recover and kill them slowly. Lin Feng spent more than a day to complete the test. As for Wang En, after 2 days, he did not come out of the Earth Core spider lair. Huang Tianyu did not know whether he was dead or delayed. The time limit for the test was 2 days. Since he did not come out, it meant that he had been eliminated. Therefore, Huang Tianyu did not wait for him. "Let's go." When the time was up, Huang Tianyu took Yi Xian and the others back to the Battle King Hall. Their group was the slowest. When they came back, all the other participants had already returned. There is still a second round. If you get a good ranking, you may get a hollow godly weapon. Do your best. After returning, Huang Tianyu said to Yi Xian. Then he left. Chapter 580. Translator, Transin Editor. Transin Reward Battle. However, the ethereal divine weapon that Huang Tianyu mentioned made Yi Xian and the other three's eyes light up. It was an ethereal divine weapon. Although a spirit stage martial artist couldn't use an ethereal divine weapon, the amplification was definitely better than the best celestial artifacts. The second round? Seems that I have to take first place. In the future, even if I don't use the Bahuang sword, I can use other ethereal divine weapons to replace it. My strength will increase tremendously, Yi Xian thought to himself as he returned to his residence. However, what he didn't know was that Huang Tianyu, who he didn't think was a half-beast, had also gone to look for the Deputy Hall Master. At this moment, in a residence in the Warlord Hall. Deputy Hall Master, I'm back. Huang Tianyu knelt down on one knee. What clues did you find? The Deputy Hall Master frowned and asked. Nothing. There's still no news of Chen Liang. He should be dead. Huang Tianyu shook his head. Do you think he was killed by Yi Xian, or did he die in the nest? The Deputy Hall Master asked. Huang Tianyu hesitated for a moment before replying. I think that Yi Xian didn't have the strength to kill Chen Liang. Therefore, I think that there's something wrong with the nest. I'm going to investigate it later. There's no need for that. I'll send someone else to investigate. Once Yi Xian passes the test, he'll be assigned to your team. The Deputy Hall Master said. Then he doesn't need to go to the main hall? Huang Tianyu asked again. How can we send such a good seedling to the main hall? Moreover, the main hall is filled with experts. It's easy for him to be exposed. Let him stay in your team and observe him. If you find anything wrong, you can kill him. I heard that there are 2 ethereal divine beasts in the area under our jurisdiction. I'm going to refine 2 half-beast hearts. After the Deputy Hall Master finished speaking, he turned around and said, You can go first. The main hall will send someone to investigate later. You should go out and walk around. Don't stay in the sub-hall. It's easy to expose yourself. Yes, Deputy Hall Master. Huang Tianyu nodded and left the room. He was also a half-beast. He was a half-beast. As for the Deputy Hall Master Huang Tianyu Maonen. Very quickly, another 3 days passed. During these 3 days, Yi Xian had stayed in his residence. However, he couldn't increase his power Upanishad by cultivating blindly. Fighting was faster. 3 days later, someone called the 4 of them to gather at the entrance of the branch hall. This was the second round of the Palace Guard assessment. Yi Xian already knew what it was. It was a battle. When the 4 of them arrived at the entrance, there were already dozens of geniuses from the 12 domains gathered here. Before the examination, the total number of people had exceeded 100. But after the first round, only half of the participants remained. Indeed, the Battle Emperor Hall wanted elites. Those who were weak were all eliminated. At this time, the average attribute conversion of these geniuses was estimated to have reached 60. Among these people, there were many geniuses who had achieved 70% attribute conversion, the same level as Murong Shui. Some were even higher than her, achieving 75% attribute conversion. However, the strongest amongst them was naturally Sun Xingyu, who had comprehended the profundity of the Midas touch. Metal-type attacks were the strongest, and there were few Earth-type attacks that countered Metal-type attacks, so Sun Xingyu could be considered the strongest. After him was Yi Xian. If Yi Xian had just arrived at the Battle Emperor Hall's branch hall, he might have been afraid of Sun Xingyu. But now Yi Xian was confident that he could kill Sun Xingyu. After waiting outside for a while, a group of palace guards walked out from inside. The leader was a young man in golden armor. He was the one who had tested Yi Xian's group of 5, Huang Tianyu. The second round of the palace guard assessment begins now. Huang Tianyu looked around and said loudly, All of you are considered to have joined the Battle Emperor Hall. The second round of the assessment is not for elimination, but for rewards. All of you add up to 60 people. Next, you will be divided into 12 groups of 5 people. After that, the 5 of you will fight in a chaotic battle. The last person standing will be promoted to captain when he has enough contribution points. Everyone's eyes lit up when they heard Huang Tianyu's words. Did that mean that they were now palace guards of the Battle Emperor Hall? So this round was for rewards. This was good news. There will be a total of 3 rounds in the second round of the assessment. The first round will determine 12 people, the second round will determine 6 people, and the third round will determine 3 people. The last 3 people will receive a hollow divine weapon as their reward. Huang Tianyu said. This time the crowd burst into an uproar. The reward is a hollow divine weapon? Wow, there's a hollow divine weapon. This is awesome. Awesome my ass. You only converted 60% of your attributes. Do you think you can enter the top 3? Why not? I can't beat Sun Xingyu. I heard that Yi Xian converted less than 60% of his attributes. If we meet, it's hard to say who will win. Keep bragging. He can easily defeat you. Everyone started whispering to each other. Yi Xian narrowed his eyes. Out of the 3 hollow divine weapons, he had reserved one. Alright, let's start drawing lots. Huang Tianyu took out a pot with 12 bamboo sticks, and let these people draw one by one. 1, 3, 10, 6, 12. There were 12 bamboo sticks in the container, representing 12 groups. Each stick could be drawn 5 times at most. After a short time, Huang Tianyu came back with the container. Yi Xian drew a stick, number 12. Then Murong Shui drew number 3, Shi Xiao drew number 5, and Lin Feng drew number 7. Very quickly, all 60 people finished drawing lots. Alright, number 15, come out. When drawing lots, everyone was paying attention to the numbers of the people around them. However, they didn't know each other and there were so many of them, so the number 15 didn't know their opponent's strength. After hearing Huang Tianyu's words, the 5 of them walked out from the crowd and stood in front of the crowd in 5 different directions. In this open space, for sword scars had already carved out an arena. You can fly, but you can't fly more than 5 meters. The one who leaves the arena loses. Also, you can't kill. Let's start. Huang Tianyu reminded them. When Huang Tianyu's voice faded away, the 5 of them didn't move at all. They surveyed the surroundings. Because they didn't know the strength of the others, they couldn't recklessly make a move. The 5 people remained silent for a few seconds. Then, one of them couldn't help but attack the person on his left. In an instant, the other 3 people attacked as well. The 4 people reached a consensus in an instant. The unlucky guy's face darkened. He quickly retreated and shouted, I surrender. This was not a battle to the death, it was just a reward battle. Since they were already palace guards, they didn't need to risk their lives. Although they weren't allowed to kill, they could still make mistakes. When this person admitted defeat, a palace guard immediately took action and destroyed the 4 attacks one by one. The person who had admitted defeat was safe and sound. Chapter 581. Translator. Transin Editor. Transin turning stone into gold, the 4 of them remained silent for a moment before attacking. This time they did not reach a consensus, so a chaotic battle broke out. At this time Shi Xiao, who was watching from the sidelines, suddenly approached Yi Xian and whispered, Yi Xian, that person has been looking at you. Hearing this, Yi Xian paused and followed Shi Xiao's gaze. He saw a young man in white. Could it be that he is Sun Xingyu? Yi Xian narrowed his eyes and looked into his opponent's eyes. His opponent's eyes were full of murderous intent. Yi Xian looked at him in confusion. This was his first time seeing Sun Xingyu. Why was he so hostile towards him? After thinking about it for a while, he finally understood. Sun Xingyu was of the metal attribute, while he was of the earth attribute. Both of them had comprehended profound meaning, so in Sun Xingyu's eyes, Yi Xian was far more dangerous than the others. Obviously, Sun Xingyu also needed a hollow god weapon, so he was determined to make it to the top 3. He was not afraid of the others. Only Yi Xian could threaten him. What number is he? Yi Xian asked. Look, I saw him. He's number 11. He almost fought you. Shi Xiao said in surprise. Sun Xingyu was number 11, and Yi Xian was number 12. They were so close to a winner in the first round. That was close. However, Yi Xian did not care. He needed a hollow god weapon anyway. If his opponent dared to block his way, he would just kick him away. At this time, the winner of the first arena was decided. The winner was a person with 65% attribute conversion. Then it was the second battle. There was nothing to see in the second battle. It was also a person with 65% attribute conversion who crushed the other 4. The third battle was Luosha region's Murong Shui. Oh, it's a beauty. That's rare. Not bad, not bad. She's so graceful and curvy. If we could train together, it would definitely be awesome. She'll lower your voice. I heard that her attribute conversion is 70%, and she's only 22 years old. What? 70%? It is said that among the 60 of us, including Sun Xingyu, only 5 of us have achieved 70% conversion. When they heard the news, those who had designs on Murong Shui immediately shut up. In this world where the strong were respected, there were still many female experts. If they were heard, then they would have a grudge and would definitely not have a good ending in the future. There was still no suspense in this round. The other 4 also knew Murong Shui's level, so they all admitted defeat to leave a good impression on her. Luck played a large part in this reward battle. As soon as the battle started, many people who were self-aware admitted defeat, so the battle was not very intense. He had won the battle with the stone puppet. As for Lin Feng, who had only converted 55% of his attributes, he admitted defeat as soon as he entered the arena. He knew that his strength was at the bottom, so there was no need to show off. Soon it was the 11th round. Sun Xingyu is going on stage. Everyone's eyes lit up. Only then did they notice that there was another expert who had achieved 70% attribute conversion alongside Sun Xingyu. At this time, all 5 of them had already entered the arena. I admit defeat. I admit defeat. I admit defeat. 3 voices rang out in a row. Except for Sun Xingyu and the cold-faced young man, the other 3 all admitted defeat. The 5 people's chaotic battle suddenly became a one-on-one battle. You don't admit defeat? Sun Xingyu looked at the cold-faced young man in front of him. As far as I know, your ultimacy is Midas Touch. If this ultimacy doesn't hit the opponent, it won't have any effect. The cold-faced young man said indifferently. Yes, but do you think you can fight against me? Sun Xingyu narrowed his eyes. Midas Touch's metal element ultimacy was not very effective in a battle of pure qi. However, Sun Xingyu's strength was also very strong. He had converted 73 points to the cold-faced young man's 70 points. Although it was a small gap, Sun Xingyu's metal element ultimacy was stronger than the cold-faced young man's fire element ultimacy. Therefore, if the cold-faced young man wanted to win, it would depend on his martial arts attainment and battle experience. Stop talking nonsense, let's begin. Huang Tianyu shouted in his golden armor. Sun Xingyu's eyes flashed with displeasure. He snorted and said, "If that's the case, I'll send you out." In an instant he attacked. At the same time, the cold-faced young man did the same. The metal element and the fire element were both attributes with strong attack power. However, if they were to compare, the metal element was still slightly better. As soon as the battle began, Sun Xingyu suppressed his opponent and forced him to retreat. The surrounding people also opened their eyes wide. They wanted to see what kind of effect Midas Touch's gold element ultimacy had. Bang! 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 The 2 of them began to exchange blows. The battle was very intense. Outside the arena, Yixian, if you were to fight against Sun Xingyu, how confident are you? Shi Dang could not help but ask. Hearing this question, Yixian paused. Although Sun Xingyu was strong, he could not even defeat the silver-armored man, let alone the silver-armored man who had undergone demon transformation. Yixian did not need to use the Bahuang sword to deal with him. He could use the demon god transformation to kill him instantly. 30%. Yixian answered casually. Oh, that's fine. There are 12 groups anyway. With so many people, we might not necessarily meet him. Shi Dang comforted him. Suddenly, he did not know that Yixian was talking nonsense. Yixian nodded silently. He felt that Shi Dang was a good person. He could make friends with him. In the arena, the 2 experts who had transformed their attributes to 70% were fighting fiercely. At this time, the battle had reached its climax. Whoosh! Suddenly, a golden light flashed and brushed past the cold-faced young man's shoulder. In an instant, the cold-faced young man's shoulder was frozen. Ultimacy Midas Touch. A golden stone instantly condensed on the cold-faced young man's shoulder. The circulation of his vital energy rapidly decreased. Not good. The cold-faced young man quickly dispelled the attack, but Sun Xingyu was not idle. Get out! Sun Xingyu's eyes flashed. He slashed at the cold-faced young man and sent him flying. Another golden stone condensed on the cold-faced young man's stomach. Because it was not a battle to the death, Sun Xingyu showed mercy and did not take his opponent's life. In a battle between experts, a small detail could often determine the outcome of the battle. After seeing the cold-faced young man being blasted out of the arena, a palace guard quickly rushed over and used his vital energy to help the cold-faced young man dispel the golden nugget. This palace guard happened to have Earth attribute vital energy. Moreover, his attribute transformation had reached 80%, so he easily dispelled the golden nugget. Chapter 582. Translator. Nayerbo Studio Editor. Nayerbo Studio Yixian entered the arena. Thank you. The cold-faced youth thanked him. Round 11. Sun Xingyu won. Humph, you overestimate yourself. Sun Xingyu snorted coldly and left the arena. At the same time he glanced at Yixian. The next round was Yixian's turn. Yixian ignored Sun Xingyu's glare and slowly walked out of the arena. He couldn't be bothered to compete with Sun Xingyu. If Sun Xingyu accidentally drew him in the next round, he wouldn't mind teaching this arrogant guy a lesson. If not, as long as Sun Xingyu didn't provoke him, he couldn't be bothered. Now, there were only 5 people left who hadn't entered the arena. After Yixian walked out, the other 4 paused for a moment. They were also hesitating. This was because Yixian had comprehended the profound meaning, but they hadn't. This wasn't because they were afraid of Yixian, but because they were afraid that Yixian would rise and cause trouble for them in the future. The 5 of them entered the arena and stood apart. However, the other 4 had their eyes on Yixian. After thinking for a moment, they made a decision. Whatever. Although this kid has comprehended the profound meaning, he might be sent to the main hall. If I can obtain a Void God weapon, my strength will increase greatly. This was the thought in their minds. The 4 of them had all achieved 60% of their attribute conversion. However, they didn't know that Yixian had also achieved 60% of his attribute conversion. Their information was from before the assessment. If they were to compare realms, Yixian wasn't the weakest of the 5. Let's begin. Outside the arena, Huang Tianyu said impatiently. As soon as he finished speaking, the other 4 except for Yixian exchanged glances and reached a consensus. First, they would clear Yixian out of the arena. In an instant, the 4 of them launched attacks at Yixian. Haha. You think you can win against me? Yixian attacked 4 times in an instant and destroyed all the attacks. At the same time, he took a step forward. Battle Dragons 10 steps. Throbbing pulse of the world second layer. Buzz. The 4 of them only felt a roar in their heads. By the time they reacted, they felt a pain in their chests. Shockingly, they had already fallen outside the ring. Yixian blasted the 4 of them out of the arena in an instant and won the 12th match. What's going on? Didn't you say that his attribute conversion was only 50% and not 60%? It's all nonsense. This is clearly 60%. Shocking 4 people with a single kick? Is that the throbbing pulse of the earth? Incredible. I wonder who is stronger between him and Sun Xingyu. The people outside began to discuss again. Sun Xingyu watched with a dark face. Apparently, Yixian's Upanishad was more practical than his. However, he wasn't envious. After all, he was of the metal element. If he could comprehend the metal guard in the future, then his defensive power would greatly increase. He wouldn't be any weaker than the pulsating guard. Powerful indeed. Huang Tianyu narrowed his eyes and watched with envy. His attribute conversion had already reached 90%. If he was given more time, he would be able to reach the peak of the spirit stage. However, if he didn't comprehend the Upanishad, then he wouldn't be able to break through to the Void God realm. Right now, all 12 matches had been completed. Out of the 60 people, only 12 people had been eliminated. Out of the 12 people, other than Yixian, all of them had converted at least 65% of their attributes. Among them, there were even 4 who had converted 70% of their attributes. The 12 of you can go to the martial arts hall and choose a Void God rank martial art. Huang Tianyu said. A Void God rank martial art was better than a heaven rank martial art. It was a martial art that allowed people to comprehend the Upanishad better. Hearing this, everyone's eyes lit up. What was their purpose for coming to the Warlord Hall? Wasn't it to learn more powerful martial arts and become stronger? Although only 12 people had obtained it, they would be able to obtain merit points as long as they went out to do missions. Once they had enough merit points, they would be able to exchange for a void god rank martial art. Alright, let's move on to the second round. The winner will be able to choose another void god rank martial art. Huang Tianyu took out the pot from before. This time he was the one who drew the lot. Everyone held their breaths. Would there be a good show to watch in the second round? Other than Sun Xingyu and Murong Shui, there were two others who had converted 70% of their attributes. Adding on Yixian, the chances of them facing each other was very high. Soon the order of the 6 matches was out. Sun Xingyu faced a person who had converted 65% of his attributes. The same went for Murong Shui. Yixian faced a person who had converted 70% of his attributes. As for Shi Xiao, he faced an opponent of the same level. The first match was against Sun Xingyu. There was no suspense in this match. Sun Xingyu's opponent chose to forfeit. Number 2's opponent was number 3, and number 3 was Murong Shui. Therefore, his opponent also forfeited. The third match was between number 4 and number 6. They fought to their heart's content. In the end, number 4 won. The fourth match was between number 5, Shi Xiao, and an opponent who had converted 65% of his attributes. It was supposed to be a good show. However, Shi Xiao's opponent had the metal attribute. Hence, Shi Xiao suppressed him and lost. In the fifth match, number 7 faced another expert who had converted 70% of his attributes. He had no choice but to forfeit. Then it was time for Yixian's 7th match. Everyone had been waiting for a long time. After all, this was the highlight of the show. If they won, they would be able to learn another virtual god martial art. They would not need any merit points. Everyone present knew that Yixian and the young man in white would not choose to forfeit. Under everyone's gaze, Yixian and the young man in white slowly walked out. After entering the arena, the young man in white could not help but say, "I'm very envious of you. You actually comprehended ultimacy. Just good luck." Yixian smiled. "I think that luck is also a part of one's strength. You have comprehended ultimacy, but my realm is higher than yours. Furthermore, I can restrain your attributes. Hence, I have a higher chance of winning this match." The young man in white continued. "It's useless to have a higher chance of winning. Even if my chances of winning are less than 50%, I still have a chance of winning." Yixian smiled again. He really did not want to bicker with his opponent. A man should use his fists instead of his mouth. High chance of winning. What a joke. With Yixian's current realm, even if the silver-armored man was not dead, he was confident that he could kill him in an instant, let alone this young man in white. The white-robed young man finished speaking. He took out a long sword and was ready to strike. "Let's begin," Huang Tianyu said. Whoosh! In an instant, the young man in white made his move. This match was related to virtual god martial arts. If he won, he would be able to learn 2 martial arts at once. Unfortunately, his opponent was Yixian. "I don't want to reveal too much of my strength. I'll take care of you quickly," Yixian thought to himself. In the next moment he took a step forward. Battle Dragon's 10 Steps. Chapter 583. Translator. Transin Editor. Transin Slightly Better. Earth-splitting sword. Earth-splitting sword. Earth-splitting sword. 3 earth-splitting swords flew past the white-clothed young man's feet. They were so fast that the white-clothed young man could not react to them. The white-clothed young man was at the same level as Li Xiu and had the same attributes. Yixian was able to defeat Li Xiu that day. How could he be defeated today? 3 swords. Yixian only used 3 swords to send the white-clothed young man flying out of the arena. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. 3 swords in less than a second. This was an instant kill. So strong. He defeated someone of a higher level in an instant. Is this the power of ultimacy? No, the earth-throbbing sword only increases attack power, not attack speed. That kid's physique is better than ours. He defeated a genius with 70% attribute conversion in an instant. Doesn't that mean Sun Xingyu is also powerless in front of him? Some people were discussing this in private. Not only them, but even Sun Xingyu was the same. He finally understood the difference between him and Yixian. He was now envious of Yixian because the practicality of the earth-throbbing sword had far surpassed the ultimacy of Midas. Humph! Sun Xingyu snorted in displeasure at the thought of this. The battle ended. Yixian won and advanced to the top 6. As long as Yixian won another battle, he would be able to obtain a virtual god weapon. At that time, with the virtual god weapon in hand, the earth-splitting sword, the war dragon stomp, and the deadly wind formation, who would be his match? Next, Huang Tianyu drew another lot. This round was extremely important. Sun Xingyu, Murong Shui, Yixian, and Shi Shao. Out of the remaining 2, one had 70% attribute conversion, while the other had 65% attribute conversion. I wonder who's fighting whom? Everyone was curious. At the same time, they hoped that Yixian and Sun Xingyu would meet. The battle between 2 geniuses who had comprehended ultimacy would be very exciting. However, the one who was the most emotional at this time was the stone puppet. This was because among the 6 of them, there was another person whose strength was similar to his. As long as Shi Feng fought against this person, he had a 50% chance of winning. At that time, he would be able to obtain a void god weapon. His strength might even be able to catch up to those who had achieved 70% attribute conversion. At this time, Huang Tianyu had finished drawing 3 rounds and decided on the order. He shouted loudly. The first round, number 3 against number 11. The second round, number 5 against number 9. The third round, number 10 against number 12. What? Everyone pondered for a moment before taking their seats. The first round was between Sun Xingyu and Murong Shui. The second match was between the stone puppet and the cultivator whose attribute had been converted to 65%. The third match was between Yixian and the last genius who had converted 70% of his attributes. After hearing the order of the battle, Yixian glanced at it. Murong Shui looked helpless, while Shi Shao was very excited. A 1 in 5 chance, and he actually encountered it. Now that everyone knew that Huang Tianyu didn't like to talk nonsense, Sun Xingyu and Murong Shui walked out directly. The void god weapon was also very attractive to Murong Shui. She wouldn't admit defeat. When the 2 of them reached the center of the arena, Sun Xingyu sneered, "You'd better get down. I won't show you mercy just because you're a woman. Please make your move." Murong Shui didn't say much. Her slender fingers gripped her long sword tightly. "Humph, you're courting death." Sun Xingyu's eyes flashed with a strange light. For a strong person like him, if he wanted a woman, countless beauties would throw themselves at him. Beauty was no longer useful to him. Since Murong Shui was so stubborn and wanted to fight, then he would accompany her. This time, without waiting for Huang Tianyu to speak, Sun Xingyu directly attacked. Whoosh! A golden sword chi with astonishing offensive power swept directly towards Murong Shui. Murong Shui's genuine chi was of the water attribute, so she couldn't fight it head-on. She immediately dodged. The metal attribute had the strongest attack, while the water attribute had many moves. Even if they fought head-on, the water attribute would at most be cut by the metal attribute, and it would still attack Sun Xingyu. However, Murong Shui did not do so. In the field, the 2 of them had already started to fight. Outside the field, the crowd began to discuss softly. Sun Xingyu is too ungentlemanly. He's so ruthless. That's right. Miss Murong is a woman. Do you think it's easy for her to stand here? Nonsense, this battle concerns the virtual god weapon. If it were you, would you show mercy? When these words were said, the surrounding people fell silent. Yixian, who do you think will win? Shi Yang couldn't help but ask. Sun Xingyu's attribute conversion is slightly better. Moreover, he has the metal attribute, so his attack power is strong. Unless Murong Shui's combat experience is far greater than his, it will be difficult for her to win. Yixian expressed his opinion. Under such circumstances, it would depend on whose martial arts attainments were higher and whose combat experience was richer. This battle didn't cause much of a commotion. The 2 of them were moving quickly in the field. Sun Xingyu constantly attacked with his golden sword chi, while Murong Shui defended herself with a lotus-like sword chi. Water lotus explosion. At this moment, Murong Shui's eyes suddenly flashed. Bang! The lotus flower that she blasted out suddenly exploded in front of Sun Xingyu. Countless water droplets shot in all directions. Sun Xingyu was stunned. He quickly defended himself, but many of them still hit him. Damn it! Sun Xingyu cursed in his heart. He was shocked to find that Murong Shui's genuine qi had entered his body through these small wounds, obstructing the flow of his genuine qi. This scene fell into everyone's eyes. The water attribute is so strange. The sword chi that was thrown out can explode. It's impossible to guard against. The metal attribute genuine chi is sharp. It can't completely destroy the lotus. Sun Xingyu is in trouble. Tisk tsk. Is Sun Xingyu going to lose here? When Sun Xingyu heard the mocking laughter of the surrounding people, he was very angry. Who was he? He was a genius who had comprehended the ultimacy. How could he lose to someone whose cultivation level was lower than his? Most importantly, Murong Shui was a woman. This made him feel even more ashamed. Bitch, I didn't want to reveal it. You forced me to do this. Sun Xingyu shouted. The long sword in his hand suddenly lit up. As he thrust out his long sword, a golden round ball instantly destroyed a water lotus. This is... The eyes of the experts outside the field lit up. They felt that this move had surpassed the realm of Tian-level martial arts. This was Void God martial arts. If this move landed on Murong Shui, it would definitely be able to pierce through her chest in an instant. Therefore, Huang Tianyu couldn't stand it anymore. Boom!